All right, and we're live. What's up, Twitch? What's up, YouTube? This is BrackCast number 35. And we've got Deji here for now. Hopefully more of the guys will join in. So today's topic, since we have an election coming here in Canada on September 20.
That's soon, eh? Jeez. That's like...
Yeah, it wasn't, apparently it wasn't planned.
2 days.
Yeah. It's September 16th. It's in 4 daes. It's 4 days.
So that's why everyone's mad at Trudeau.
Well, yeah, a lot of people are mad at him. Because he said, there's kind of too much going on with, the pandemic, COVID numbers and like economy and stuff, and he's his term's not even up or something like that, and like he's calling on this election. People speculate because apparently he's in favor. There's actually more people on the liberal side now because of how Canada is doing relatively to the rest of the world with the pandemic.
Not surprising.
So he I guess is projecting that he is in favor with the national vote, and he could potentially get majority now. I don't know though. I don't know about that. I thought maybe that the perception of him has been on the opposite end of that. I thought people weren't actually too pleased with how he's handled himself and the pandemic in the last 2 years. So either he wants out or he wants more power. So one of those. But if it ends up, so from my understanding, right now it is a minority government with the Liberals having the most votes. But if the Liberals team up with NDP, they can pass whatever they want to pass or something like that. Because the Conservatives are the opposition. How familiar are you with all the parties and stuff?
I was just about to ask you.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything from social studies.
Yeah.
So just break it down for me. There's the NDPs, there's the Conservatives, there's the Liberals.
Yeah. Okay. So for viewers there today, I wanted to talk about voting. I recently took a survey. I take surveys from time to time to earn some extra points and Aeroplan miles. And one of the surveys is about, a lot of the surveys lately have been about this election. And one of the interesting questions that I saw on the survey was if I think voting is a duty or is it a choice. And I put that on my stories. It prompted enough for me to want to talk about it today. And it's interesting. I put it in my Instagram stories today, and there's the two sides of that spectrum. One side where it's very little attention is kind of given towards the vote. It's more like an afterthought. A lot of people feel insignificant, let's say, to make a difference because there's so many people in the nation. And then you have the other side where they're it's extremely as a citizen, it is your duty. A lot of people fought and died for the right to vote. So it's, you got the passionate side, and then you've got the, I guess, the less involved side. The people who might feel a little too insignificant to make change and to make an impact. So I will find myself more in the middle, for sure, between that spectrum. And that's why I think it's cool to talk about it today, because over the past decade, I'd say, maybe 2 decades, I've gone from very low activity and involvement and participation to now paying a bit more attention. Probably because I'm getting older, and it's going to affect my future. It's going to affect kids, right? Your kids and stuff like that. So anyway, I'm going to show an example website here. So if you just do a search on Google for Elections Canada 2021 platforms, that's what I searched. Right, I'll do it right here. So on Google, you type Elections Canada platforms comparison. 2021. And you get all these awesome links. Compare the party platforms on these top election issues. Federal Election 2021 Platform Guide. So, before we go into, like the different parties and stuff like that. So, Deji, on a personal note, you were saying too, like, at what age do you think was like the idea of democracy brought up to you?
At what age?
Yeah, like how young were you when you're like, oh wow, Canada's a democracy. This is what democracy is. We're awesome, you know?
I mean, fairly young. I mean, that's like grade 9. It's like
grade 9. Okay, not even
grade 9.
That? Okay.
Well, I mean, like, I guess my story is different because I immigrated here when I was 9. So I guess like all the it wasn't that entrenched as like a younger kid because I came from a completely different like more a communist totalitarian government when I was in Nigeria to here. So
right.
I mean that idea of like a democracy, like I didn't, I guess, fully grasp it until probably like, grade 8, grade 9.
Okay.
Because I came here when I was like grade 5.
Right.
So, but yeah, as like a concept, like fully like understanding it. So yeah, grade 8, grade 9. It's like, oh, everyone is like, it's like fair. Okay, this is cool. Shit, I like this.
Yeah, like people get a say, right? Like that's what I think the ideal of democracy is like
democratic.
we get a say in how our government would treat us. Kind of. Okay. And then obviously, you elect an official or something, and then they get to represent you in your like agreement, like your large group of people agreeing, they can represent you, and then you could form this government where there's like portions and whatever. So for me, I moved here when I was 5 years old. I'm pretty sure it was either grade 3 or grade 4 where the idea of the whole politics and government was first like introduced to me. Like I actually like learned about it in school, and it was around that time where Jean Chrétien, do you remember that guy? So there was like this big PC versus liberal fight where I think the progressive conservatives, PC, made fun of Jean Chrétien because of how he looked.
His paralysis?
Yeah, like his face condition. One of the...
I think I think it was called Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Oh yeah? Okay.
I don't know that like for sure, but I think that was what it was.
Yeah, and he had like, there was like a commercial where the PC was like, is this the face of a national prime minister or something like that? Is this the face of a Canadian prime minister? And it was like a low blow, like,
shit.
So
that would never fly today.
Yeah.
Never.
Well,
that would never fly today.
Dude,
you know how much outrage would be like that? Whoever wrote that campaign would have gotten fired. I can guarantee you.
Have you? Okay. In other news, have you heard about what the Bloc Québécois guy apparently said about Jagmeet Singh?
Nah.
Okay, so Jagmeet, if for those who don't know, he is the representative for the NDP, the New Democratic Party, and he's Sikh, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So he's got the turban, a full beard, and Bloc Québécois, he's like old school francophone white guy.
Of course.
So in the house or something like that, they straight up said to each other. Maybe it was even in a debate, but he's like you. It's like it was against his look too. It's like you don't look like a Canadian prime minister.
Oh shit!
It's like we don't look like you.
Damn.
You know, actually, sad. Maybe it was even in the same sense of like you don't look like us. That's what he said. Right? And it's a valid observation. It's true. But so from what I understand, there's 3 parties on one side of the spectrum, and then you've got the other 3. So I think liberals. I mean, when you think of the word liberal, so it's kind of like change, moving forward with the times. I think they're around the left.
Sorry, I got stuck on that comment. Is that a valid observation or is that just an observation?
Valid. I mean, oh yeah. I mean, valid in what sense? I don't know if he said you don't look like a Canadian Prime Minister. I'm wrong. I think he said you don't look like us.
Yeah. So like even then, like,
yeah.
What are you basing that validity on? Just the fact that that's how the demographic has been.
I think coming from like the block guy and how traditional they are and how very conservative they are and how opposed to change they are.
Okay.
It's how it is on their platform, and those people who support them, it makes sense to them. That's what
okay.
I mean, right?
So that's like a devil's advocate, like valid observation. Which okay, yeah, that's fine.
Right. Well, yeah, because like anyone who supports Block or PC, they're I guess you would say they're more like old school, and they like the old ways, kind of.
Connected here.
Looking back to when I was in grade 4, I think is when it happened, or grade 3. I know that the teacher, whatever teacher we had at the time, kind of took it. Well, we were learning about Canada and the government and like the different parties, but you could tell obviously that the teacher was pro-liberal, right? I look back now. At the time, it was just a good guy versus bad guy scenario, right?
Okay.
So you make Jean Chrétien look out to be like the good guy who's being picked on, being bullied, and then you look at the PC at the time, and they're the bad guys, they're the bullies. And so if a teacher portrays that for a child, 2-year-old, grade 3 or grade 4, the child's gonna be like, yeah, bad bully, let's root for the good guy, which is Jean Chrétien. Yeah. But I didn't know anything about what it is to be a liberal. I didn't know what it was to, like, I didn't know any platforms then. I was too young. It was just like good guy versus bad guy, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll kind of go over really briefly the spectrum. So I don't even understand why there's a left wing, right wing thing. I think it's stupid that there needs to be that kind of a description for it, but whatever. If it works for people, it works for people. From what I'm understanding, PC, Block, and the People's Party, I think there's a new thing called People's Party, they're on the right side of the spectrum. So they're more for like old school. They don't like change. From what I understand too, like common thing with their platform is they don't put, let's say, climate change as significant as the other parties do. And they like guns. From what I understand, they like.
Yeah, it's funny when you said the People's Party. I was gonna say, who are the people that are in this party?
It's like new. The People's Party is like one of the new ones, and then you got the other side, which is Liberals, NDP, and the Green Party. Liberals are considered kind of in the middle towards the left, and then NDP is a little bit more left maybe, and then maybe Green's like super left. I don't know. That's like the people who are like pro-choice and maybe against the capital punishment, like they don't like death penalty, and the spectrum, like new and probably more for like same-sex unions, same-sex marriages, and like separating church from state and all that stuff. Like that's left. The right side's all about tradition and like how things have been and what's worked and what got us here type of thing.
All right.
So
I see it.
Regardless, I'm gonna try to I don't want to promote, let's say, what I think in terms of platform wise, but I would like to promote my strategy. Because, again, I went from someone who knew nothing about the government all the way up until through my teens. I'm pretty sure legal voting age is like, 18? 19? 18?
I think so, yeah.
18, right? And, that's a long time ago. And I'm pretty sure that for first portion of that time when I was like in my 20s, like you said in your example, I just asked my parents who they're voting for, and then I'd vote the same way.
Yeah.
And because I didn't take the time. I didn't take the time to figure out, oh, who does this person represent? What does this party promote? What are they pushing for? Some people like to vote based on personality. They just basically base it on the leader. Is this guy trustworthy, or this girl, does she come off trustworthy, or do they seem resilient? So they base their vote on like characteristics of the individual, personality traits, and then they go that way. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, in a leader, you still want some pretty human traits. So I think it's fair that you look for those things. You know, it's supposed to just their political stances and are they pro-choice or not. It's like, all right, who are you? Can I like introduce you to my parents? Like, what are you about? You know?
Right.
So
cool. Yeah, that's one stance, and then other people are where they would completely base it on just the platform. You know, they look at all the different platforms that they show in the comparison. Like, I'll show them this link here. It's a good link. Podcast example. Here, how do the main parties compare on these issues? And then there's like a drop-down list of all the issues being discussed with this election. And you can click on each of these headings, and it will bring you to the platform of each of those parties. So you click on guns, it writes down all the different sections of these guns. You write housing, goes through, this section. What I've noticed, though, in particular, some of these websites feel to me that they do favor one party over the other. It's a little biased.
Surprising.
Of course, I'm sure it's based off of even like the sponsorship, or who, like this channel might even support one of the So if for those people who want to do like a non-biased platform comparison, be aware of that. Be aware that maybe the way they word things sometimes is meant to kind of steer you in one direction. So, but like looking at here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 19 headings, right? Who's going to take the time? Sorry, I know a lot of people who would take the time, but in terms of those people who don't vote, young people who have quote unquote better things to do, really busy, or they'd rather spend their downtime doing what they want to do.
Sex.
Well, yeah, sure, that too. Exactly. So thanks, Mike, in chat. Click on the platforms, or not the platforms, click on the subjects that mean most to you. So for me personally, let's say I was looking for climate change and education. Like honestly, wouldn't look at childcare. That makes sense, right? Because if you don't have any children, it's probably not gonna matter to you much. Or guns don't care either. That makes sense. If you don't own any guns and you don't want to partake in any guns, don't read anything about the guns if you don't want to. But for me, it was climate change for me and education, which is the weird part. I couldn't find anything about education in the 19 headings of these platforms. There's nothing about like education, post-secondary education, or even like public education and stuff like that. So I was a little disappointed not to find that. But climate change was on the top for me. COVID response and COVID recovery was on top for me. So you click on that, and then it gives you a full blurb. There's other websites that do the same thing here: foreign policy, climate targets, taxation, and then they describe all the platforms. The funny thing is, liberals are always one of the longer ones described. Then it's conservatives. NDP is pretty long now, and then Green, Bloc, and PPC are always short little summaries, and that's probably because they just don't have a lot of votes. So
really, are they always in last place?
Not even just last place, man, but like it's been a while since we have majority government, I think, but like let's say 40% goes to like close 30 to 40% goes to like liberal, and then like another 30% goes to conservative or something, and then you have that remaining 20% split among the rest of the parties, which is like Greens, Bloc, PPC, right? And NDP.
So it's
NDP
like, okay.
maybe gets like 20% or 15% or something.
So it's like, if you're NDP, why even stay NDP?
You mean the people representing NDP or the people voting NDP?
The people voting NDP.
Okay, great question. So that's what my dad's all about too. Oh, I didn't mean to say that. Too late. So
okay.
like my
Hey, FJ's dad.
I was gonna say it more in like the anonymous sense, but I know people, not just my dad, who like to vote strategically. They're like, okay, we know it's either gonna be PC or conservative, so vote that way. It's a two. It's almost like if you're in the States, you have Democrats versus Republicans. You either want one or the other, because you know the other 3 or 4 aren't gonna make a dent, right? Mike says here, it's because people get stuck in their ways. Lots of people think only liberal and PC are worth voting for. Very true. Very true. And yeah, I think like NDP has climbed kind of more strongly over the years. Like I think any new party's gonna have a hard time coming up, you know, that ladder, like climbing that ladder to become any, you know, more substantial in the race. But I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think I'd want just a similar to what the Americans have, where it's like just Republicans versus Democrats. Like, it's cool that we have kind of like a wider range of choices, I'll say.
Is it?
I think so. And do you like if I don't know.
What's the variability between these choices? Are they that different, or could you do like a, what do you call it, a Venn diagram, and basically all the stuff in the middle is negligible?
Well,
and you can just fall on either side.
Like, for example, climate change, let's say, when I read on that each different party has a different percentage goal of like carbon reduction by a certain
Is everyone above 50%?
No.
Is everyone above 40%?
No. So you've got one range where they're like,
so is our people, let me ask you this, is everyone between 50% and 20%?
No.
Oh, goddamn, man.
So PPC, let's say, I'll show you People's Party. I remember reading this one, it was funny. People's Party say there is no scientific consensus that human activity is driving climate change.
What's the People's Party vote that they usually get?
I don't know.
Yeah, they're new. They don't count. We can't listen to them.
They're pretty new. No, but dude, there are people out there who agree with that. There are like intelligent people who agree with that. There's tons of documentaries now that say like climate change is cyclical. Like we're going to have another ice age, regardless of like our minuscule, impact on the environment. PPC is new, but is no different.
Okay, climate change may be cyclical, but we can still accelerate that shit.
Like, that's a stance. Yeah, I agree with you.
This ain't real. It's like, really?
Flipstar, thank you. Yes, I agree. PPC is like People's Party is like the stronger, more pure version of the PC, the conservatives. It's like the extreme side of the conservatives. And then Bloc is kind of like, I mean, I have to admit too, I have my biases towards these parties over the years of like only learning about what people tell me and like their history of like their stances. Like for me, Bloc is always going to be the party that wanted to separate Quebec from Canada. Like I don't know, it's probably unfair. I don't know if that's different, but you remember, right? The whole referendum thing.
Yeah.
Like they wanted to be part.
Y'all want to be over there?
Yeah, like Brexit, right?
Right. All right.
Spin off of
Have
PC.
fun.
Look at the
Good luck with
race.
that.
The old PC candidates is now running for PPC. Oh, well, there you go. I did not know that. I did not know that. Okay. So, I mean, that's just one extreme case, but like, you know, you got percentages ranging anywhere from, where's the target? 60% by 2030, whereas, yeah, block is similar. The NDP is 50%, conservatives are 30%, liberal is 40%, 40.
Okay, so the people, we're not listening to the people party. So everyone's basically between 30% and 60%.
No. Where is it? 20, 45, 30 is conservative. Block says... Block wants to meet Paris climate agreement targets. So I don't know what the Paris one is. Europe.
I think that's the one we just missed.
But
anyway.
I mean, you know, and I don't know. Like, let's look at guns. Let's say, yeah. So you could tell that some of these platforms have like numerical targets, actual, like tangible targets, whereas the other ones say something in generic terms and without actual targets, because in that sense they don't really have like an actual stance, you know.
It's all just semantics, man.
I think so too. That's why people are kind of turned off by politics, because it sounds like bullshit. It just sounds like fluff. It's just fluff. Yeah.
The day I stopped believing, well, okay, I'm not like an anti-voter,
right?
You know, I just think we can't discount manipulation on some level. At least in the U.S., like I know that shit is happening. Like we all know shit is being manipulated, right?
Right.
I knew that I would no longer give a shit about this when I was on a date in 2019 with this girl, and she came over to my house, and we were watching The Manchurian Candidate.
Okay.
I think this movie came out in like 2003. Was it 2019 that when was all that election stuff gearing up? It was like toward the end of it was like mid 2019, right? Because the election was going to be in 2020, right? The U.S. election.
Mm-hmm.
So in the Manchurian Candidate, they're having an election. Tell me why this guy is saying the exact same shit that Trump was saying the other day. I was like, is this for real? They were literally like saying the exact shit. And this movie came out like almost 2 decades ago.
Right.
That's why I was like, nothing is going to change.
But dude, that's
nothing is going to change.
Okay, but if it I don't know if the guy was saying was part of Republicans, and Trump is a Republican, and they're about the old school, stuck in their ways, that makes sense though. Then that's why there's nothing new, because they don't want anything new. You know what I'm saying?
It wasn't even necessarily the policies. It was just like all the promises they were making. Oh, we're going to get you jobs. Yeah. Oh, we're going to get you health care. I'm like, are you shitting me?
I actually don't know how you create jobs. And like, I mean, again, too, people are going to have different, ideas and like opinions about job creation and like unemployment rates. And another thing for me too is like taxation too. Like people always want to lower taxes. Yeah. Well, in general, it's like when you say I'll lower the taxes, everyone's like happy about that. It's like it's a positive to lower taxes. Yeah, I gotta pay less to the government. But then you look at healthcare and like infrastructure in your schools, in the cities, and like road maintenance, and then sewage and water treatment and recycling. It's like all these things, garbage collection, and then they're all like pissed because they're not getting enough money or something. So I get it. It's like it's complicated. So
it is complicated.
So are you saying because of all this has deterred you from being like, you know what, I'm gonna leave it to other people to figure it out? Is that your stance now?
I think, okay, I don't know who suggested this, and this is a radical idea, but like he was like, yeah, there shouldn't be one president of the United States. There should be like 8 or something. I just feel
8.
like the whole like unilateral way that like government is run, where it's like pick one side. It's like there should be some sort of like consensus driven government where like even the people that are on the same side, they take a vote, amongst the people and see what majority of the population's concerns align with, say, climate change or blah 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 blah, and then tailor their resources and their tax increases to like addressing those issues. Not fucking, yeah, we're gonna do this, so vote for us. Yeah, we're gonna do this, so vote for us. It's like, no, let's listen to y'all, and then let's come together and then like fix what y'all's problems are.
But how
But
do you
anyway,
fix if half the nation thinks one way and the other half thinks another? Do you think
well,
that you should divide
that's why
it?
you have. Well, the one way we've been doing it is that's how it's been, right? So why not just like try another method anyway? Like everyone's gonna be divided regardless, but
Right.
maybe there's a
So
couple majorities on certain things, and that's a good starting point. Everyone wants free healthcare in the U.S.
okay.
or affordable healthcare in the U.S. So
Affordable, right? And
you know,
another thing is like education too. Like they want education to be more
it's
affordable.
like basic shit.
They want housing to be more affordable. They want, yeah, like cost of
Let's
living,
get
just everything. Cost of living. They just generally want that to be more accessible to a wider range of the population. But when you said 8 presidents, like what would that do?
No, I just mean like, okay. The reason I mentioned the eight presidents thing is because that was just a radical way of running a government that I hadn't heard before. And it's like, oh, why not just like try something random like that? Because like what we've been doing so far only works so well. Like if that makes, I'm not saying necessarily get 8 presidents to run the United States. I'm just saying like maybe just having one guy do everything
Yeah.
isn't the most efficient way to do things. Like Rome before they had an emperor was run by what's it called? Like a consulate. It was like a bunch of people, like a
Yeah.
senate. Sorry,
A Senate. Yeah.
So like, and that dynasty was like one of the greatest shits ever. So it's like it can work,
Okay.
but
By what you mean by greatest dynasty is what though? Like world power? Because were the citizens
Rome
actually actually like, or were they equal? Did they have,
okay. Before, I don't quote my history, but before Rome, like civilization and like an economy, it wasn't that advanced. Like Rome at its peak was the most like advanced civilization on the planet, because
Right.
they had rule of law, they had structure, they had armies, they had currency, they had trade, they had infrastructure, they had education. So like,
Mm-hmm.
and at the time, and sorry, like throughout the history of Rome, like there was a period of time where it was ruled by not one person but like multiple senators.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's all I'm saying.
No, I agree for sure. And you're saying, I guess, that structure was very successful at that time, and you think maybe, or are you proposing that that structure could be adopted at these times and it would also have the same kind of impact?
I mean, the way I look at it is when you look back at that time, right? A lot of the consensus, a lot of the focus of that Senate was the good of Rome, for the good of Rome, right?
Right.
I
Right.
feel like a lot more of their policies, whatever, was geared toward making the city better. Um, so I'm not necessarily saying let's adopt that same structure in today's day and age, but I'm just raising the argument. Is having one supreme ruler over a country as complex and large as America really the best solution?
Okay. Well, we're looking at, let's say, the presidential role or the prime minister as like a king imperial thing, but they're not. It's the way the country is run isn't just their own personal thoughts of that individual. It's they represent like a large office of like
Yeah,
legislators and like planners and economists and
yeah,
scientists.
yeah.
So it's not like it's a one ruler. They're just the face. It's like the mascot. I honestly did look at Trump as the mascot. Like,
But at
yeah.
yeah, but at the same time, I feel like they still have
Oh, sorry.
at least publicly, they still have like the last say, quote unquote, the last say. Like I'm just like, okay, let's think of a situation where you had fucking someone like, okay, forget his policies or whatever, just the sheer brilliance of a man. Someone like Obama in office, and then like Elon as his number two, and then like Steve Jobs as his number three.
Okay.
You know, one guy looking at technology and like, well, I guess they would be both looking at technology. But what would be the other? Okay, someone that was more focused on like environmental issues, like an environmental like top lead was like it was like a three-headed thing where like they sat together and deliberated all the information they got from their advisors and heads of staff and all that shit, and then they both three sat down and like, okay, this is what we should do. This is what we should do. You know. And if they came, and if they had a conflict, they would just have a tie or have a vote or whatever. You know, just like thinking outside the box a bit.
Right.
I don't know.
Okay.
What you think?
Well, okay.
Does it sound preposterous?
If that was the case, okay, sorry, chat saying that's why we have ministers in cabinet. Yeah, you have your members of parliament. You have like, why we have prime minister down to premiers. No, yeah, premiers down to mayors. It's segmented also by region, based on like I guess the majority of people in that region what they want for their region, right? Like we have provincial government, we have federal government, we have municipal government. Is that what you're saying?
Who, me?
Yeah, like.
I mean, at the end of the day, though, there's still a one singular person at the top.
But that singular person
like that.
is only the voice on TV that you see, but it's not that person's call. We're not trying to convince that person. At least that's what I understand. That we're not just trying to convince that person. Democracy. Well, okay. So what is America's? Aren't they kind of a democracy too? I mean,
are they?
They're Democrats. I think Democrats are more up on the democracy side of model, whereas the Republicans like the Republic, which is more like imperial almost.
So what the hell are those? What are they called? The super voters or whatever?
Super.
You heard of those shits? Where it's like if they vote, their vote counts for like I forget what it's called. There's a couple people in government, like in the U.S., where they have like when they vote,
a larger like vote.
Yeah.
What the hell is that all about? Said each state has different number of super votes. And how does that work, Day?
What the fuck is that?
Super delegates.
Yeah, super delegates.
I'm gonna turn.
There should be no super delegates in a fucking democracy.
Hold on here, guys. I'm gonna try to take out the ads here. Yeah, I'll do one ad per hour. Let's just do that. Ad length, and let's lower these ads to like. Oh my god, what? 30 seconds. First ad delay. Let's go with 1 minute. Okay, save changes. Sorry about the ads, guys. It's new to me. Super delegates, they're not in government though. That's just the Electoral College, which is a huge issue in itself. US is United States Congress, Canada is House of Commons. Yes, yeah, that's like they prevent anything from like, these
being fair
parties. well, they'll put up like a barrier so that they can't just do whatever they want to do. But I mean,
who can't do whatever they want to do?
like the Congress for the U.S. and the House of Commons for Canada, you know, versus the actual like party, the like what's the word for that? Canadian government. Okay, and I mean I get what you're saying in terms of like our system's flawed. It could be not necessarily restructured, but it could be optimized better. I understand that, but not even looking into that. Let's just bring it back simply to even just your involvement with your future in this country, right? Like versus, let's say, if we were to still be in, you know, if you were still in Nigeria, I was still in the Philippines, understanding how the governments run there, even like the higher level of corruption perhaps in like the Philippine government. You know, people come to Canada and they're like, they feel like this trust that Canada would take care of them, and like we're safer here. We have like, you know, there's obviously it's a larger like mass, like it's a larger country. It can house a lot more people, so there's space for one. There's diversity, and we have some sort of like, you know, economic power with the rest of the world, and we're also like in good terms with a lot of people in the world. So it's like Canada, a lot of people are like proud to be Canadian, and the government system is actually part of that pride. Would you agree with that or disagree? Do you not feel like
No, I agree.
Canadian? Okay, so what created that for you? What defined that positivity for you? If you were someone, let's say, like a lot of us growing up, who took very little involvement in politics and like voting and stuff.
What inspired my pride in Canada?
Yeah. Well, the government portion of it.
That's what I'm gonna say. Like, I'm not. Okay, how am I gonna put this? The government portion of it hasn't really done anything for me, because to me, the government portion of it is just a reflection of like the day-to-day shit that I see, right? If that makes sense. Like
you're subject to, you know, whatever is the standard. We all have to face every day, right?
Yeah.
And it's like whatever is said that we're limited to, our restrictions and our limitations. Fine, that's what I got to work with, and that's what I'll work with. It kind of feels like we just follow a regime, like orders, right?
No, that's not even what I was saying. Like, I meant, because you're talking about what inspires pride in Canadians, right?
Well, there's a lot of things that inspire pride in Canadians, but I'm talking more so in the sense of like, why do people feel that their vote doesn't matter?
Oh, okay, that's a different question.
But I mean, you feel free to still, if you want to elaborate on national pride, that's still fine. That's totally fine.
Yeah, because my point with that was like, just like the average experience when you go to Tim Hortons, you know, person in front of you helps you hold the door. Oh, thank you. And then there's like a double door, and they help you hold the second door, and then you're like, oh, thanks, man. So it's like when I watch politicians on the news,
okay,
I just imagine like these are the people I'm seeing on TV. They have the same type of composition as these random people that I run into on the street in Tim Hortons and the fucking train station. Like, we're all just like Canadians, so it's not really like what they're saying or what's coming out of their mouth that's like giving me that sense of like, oh man, I'm glad I'm Canadian. It's like knowing everyone around me is pretty much cool and like friendly, and that's probably how they are. So like they're doing a good job because they're also trying to, you know, with that mentality, they're also trying to make sure everyone else is okay. So it's more like that, if that makes sense.
So you would say like our leadership could be like an accurate representation of our population?
Yeah, exactly.
People, like who we are as people.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's not like a vast, oh, Trudeau's fucking balling, driving a fucking Lambo everywhere like he's fucking rich as fuck. No, he just looks like some fucking regular guy.
Okay.
You know?
I mean perception is huge in these election races, right? Like, you know, again with let's say the look of NDP versus the look of PC or Block, that image is who they're trying to appeal to, right? And I can see, like, let's say Jagmeet. Oh yeah, Day said, but they're loaded. Yeah, they're rich. Like,
that's fine. Yeah.
Not to dismiss what you were saying too about the super votes. So apparently, it doesn't really matter how many vote in the U.S. as long as you get the majority of the super delegates, which is 270 to win. Texas has 38, New York has 29, Cali has 55, etc. So those are the super delegates in the U.S. And I guess it's more like, I mean, but those super delegates, you're saying these are like one individual who has like a larger portion of votes compared to, let's say, the population that they're in, that they represent, like Cali? Jade? Back to what you were saying, Dej.
Yep.
Do you think that, like, let's say how Trump got in? I kind of understand how Obama got in. I'm still perplexed as to how Trump got in. Like, if you win Cali, your party gets 55 of the super votes. If you win Cali, your party gets 55 of the super votes. And are you saying for these super votes, this is for, like, obviously you've already won the state, so you can have more say in, like, like passing laws with the government? Like, you have, like, more say with the actual government? And that counts towards your 270. Okay, I don't get it, and it's okay, I don't need to get it. Obviously it's, yeah, I mean,
I was gonna say, did anyone ever notice Congress is the opposite of progress?
That's true. That's maybe that's why it's actually called that. Like, they're the barrier. They're the barrier to like pushing forward legislation. Like, just like House of Commons, it's so common. We don't like change. It's not House of Change. It's House of Commons. So even if you win less number of states, as long as you have win in the major states that has the most super votes, you win the election. Got you, Day. Okay, but I guess are those super delegates proportional to the population density that they represent? You know what I'm saying? Because that kind of makes sense. If California has way more people in their, okay, then that makes sense. Does that make sense then to you, Dej?
Sorry, say what?
These super voters, let's say, it's not like 50 states, each state has the same weight when it comes to, like, defining whether or not the next government's going to be Republican or Democrat. It's not about, like, majority number of states. It's the majority of these super votes, super delegates, because there's more people in certain states than there are in others.
I see.
Which sounds fair, you know? Like, you know, you could, like, declare yourself, like, a new state, but you only have, let's say, like, you know, for example's sake, 100 people in there. And then you have another state that has, like, 1,000 people in there. It's not necessarily fair that each one of those states has the same weight in terms of determining whether or not the country's going to be one way or the other. You know what I'm saying?
It isn't?
So comparison, Nebraska has
in other democracies, do they do that?
Well, I think so, man. Like, Canada isn't by province. It's not like we have 10 provinces and whoever is the majority in each province gets that province and is equivalent to 1/10 of the government. Like, that's not how it is. I'm pretty sure it's more so like actual total tally of people voting and shit. I mean, that's why the whole, like, tallying is such a big deal. Like, we have our zones, like our, you know, like when I went in to vote, I didn't know any of those names on that ballot. I just knew who the platform was that I was like rooting for.
Hmm.
But I mean, okay, not to make this an educational thing about how like the government is structured, but this is more so again back to just like the primary thing. Do you think voting is a duty or a choice? As a Canadian citizen,
I think it's
people opt out of voting for many reasons, and one of the reasons is they feel that that vote will mean nothing. Two, they don't know well enough or aren't educated enough to make a vote they think would be actually valuable or fair to themselves and others. And yeah, and other people would maybe just say like they're just too busy. They don't have the time to line up and go in or send their vote or email or whatever or mail in their ballot.
and other
What?
people just don't care.
Okay, and yes, a lot of people don't care. They'll just do what what is told of them once it passes. Like whatever they're stuck in, they're gonna do.
Hmm.
Okay. Mike says it's a privilege. Let me think about this. Okay, can I ask you specifically, personally, where do you stand in that?
Me?
Yeah.
I think it's a. You said, is it a choice or a duty? I think it's a
Is it a
choice.
duty or a choice? Mike says it's a privilege, which is another, like, I'd say it's a good fair categorization of what it could be.
Yeah, I think.
It's definitely a right. It's a right that we all have as a citizen, right? Like we have the
Yeah,
right to vote, and that was
I
a
think
big
it's
thing
a.
people fought for.
I think it's a privilege, even if it was a duty, like with it being a duty or a choice. You know, because some people somewhere don't get to vote. They
Yeah,
just get to get attacked by the Taliban.
they just said that too. I'd say privilege because if you were in China, you don't even get a say. So having understood that, yes, it's a privilege. It's not just a right, but it's a privilege. Why don't people take advantage of that privilege or like exercise that privilege? And why is it something that
There's
people
lots.
wouldn't care about?
There's lots of privileges that people don't take advantage of. Like,
Laziness, that's one. That's a
you
good
know,
reason. I mean, not a
if you
good
have
reason,
somebody
sorry, but
first world.
that's an actual reason. For me, it was negligence for a long time. I didn't want to concern myself because I too fell in that path of like, you know what? I feel like other people in this country have a better idea and grasp of how this country should run, and I trust them. You're basically placing trust on other people to how you want to run your life in this country, right? Lots of privilege that people don't take advantage of. I
Okay,
agree with Deji.
let me ask you this.
Mhm.
Let me ask you this. So right now we're in a democracy, right?
Mhm.
Throughout the different, for anyone that's experienced life on uh in a government that they voted for and in a government that they didn't vote for,
Yeah.
are there, when you point out the differences, are they life changing?
After getting the vote, you mean?
Yeah, like I mean, living in both the governments, the one that you did vote for and the one that you didn't vote for, maybe
Right.
like the one you didn't vote for was like one you hated.
Yeah.
Were those differences life changing?
Okay. I'm really glad you asked that because it's one of the kind of direct not one of the angles I wanted to portray here. So you're talking about maybe immigrants coming from a country where they didn't have a vote, now coming into a country where they now have a vote and they can have a say. Is that what you mean? Immigrants? Because if
I
you
mean, that's one way you could, yeah, you could look at it like that.
because if you're gonna look in the extreme sense, like the woman vote and the black vote,
Okay.
right? And it was a huge difference once they got it. And
Okay.
they hated where they came from. Let's say like in the U.S. Civil War, right? And they were fighting for the right to vote, and then women's rights came later. Like women wanted votes too, and
Okay, but then that obviously wasn't a democracy then. You know?
is that obvious? Like why not? If it's still the same structure of like parties
If
and
if
voting for
if
government legislation and stuff.
no, I just mean like the people that didn't have the vote before,
Uh
that
huh.
period that they didn't have that vote. They didn't live in a democracy.
That's exactly it. Yeah, yeah.
So
You
I'm
don't get a
saying,
vote.
like,
You don't get a vote if you don't live in that. Yeah.
I'm speaking about the people that are like, yo, you gotta vote or you're trash. I'm like, all right, when you voted and you lived in the government that you voted for, as opposed to living in the government that you didn't vote for, how vast was the difference in your life?
Oh, you're gonna say now. Let's say in Canada, you've been here. Let's say I don't know, 20 years.
Yep.
10 of those years you didn't vote. 10 of those years you did. Would the change have been apparent?
Yep.
I don't know. I guess it depends what you went and voted for and how many other people agreed with you, right?
I would love to do a survey of that and just see like what everyone's answers was.
Well, here I'll just show you this.
How vast was that difference?
Let me
did
just
it really impact your life?
percentage of Canadians who don't vote. So I don't know, just a quick stat here. Lowest voting turnout on record was 2008. It was 58.8%.
Of people that voted?
Voter turnout in 2011. Yeah, 58.8% of the population of voters in Canada. Only 58% voted. In 2011, 61.4% voted. 2015, 68.5% voted. The highest turnout since 1993. So there's over 30% of voters in Canada don't vote.
I mean,
when you look at a number like that as an aggregate, yeah, it's substantial. But as you and as an individual, you're right. Your one vote probably not going to make a difference. I thought that too. It's like, what is my one vote going to make a difference? But that's how democracy works, man. Like, not everyone gets a say. Everyone kind of needs to agree on something, right?
And then it's like, if everyone is not even voting, how is that even fair?
Exactly. That's what I think. That's why people, when they complain about the fairness, it's like, well, did you vote then? So if people don't vote and then you got this government running shit that the way you don't like, do you think then by not voting nothing should change? Like what should be the structure there?
I'm just looking at human behavior. Okay, maybe China's different, North Korea is different because they have full control over everybody. But in a democracy, it's never going to get to 100% of people voting. It's probably never going to get to 80. So it's like that.
Why not? Trend, why not? No, why is that though? Why do you think that is? I'm sure there's countries out there who get much higher than Canada. Much higher than Canada, where they're democracy too.
But what is the incentive? I know in like America, when Obama was about to be president, there was a crazy youth turnout because it was like, oh shit, this is different. So unless we see something like crazy and historical like that, I don't think that trend is going to change.
Right.
You know?
But I understand the argument you're making of like, what's the significance of the one vote or the singular vote and why voting at all? And like, what's the payout, right?
It's not even that argument. It's like okay, if the voting pool isn't even at 100%, like, you know, like if the voting pool isn't even, like if only 60% of people are voting, then my vote is still skewed. Regardless.
Well, if there's 60%, Mike said it really good here. If there are less people voting, that means each vote is worth more.
It's just all. I wish I paid attention to statistics.
Well, dude, I don't think it has anything to do with statistics, though. Like, if you agree, okay.
No, I mean, there's stats that go into it, though. I mean, like.
Well, statistics is like historical things of like behaviors of past voters, but why would that figure affect what you want for your life? Like, if it's like, you know.
Okay, so that's why I asked that question. Like, what was the major difference that you saw in your life when you were in a government that you voted for, as opposed to being in a government that you didn't vote for? Like, what did that government's policy How
Okay.
did it impact your personal life? How
I'll
did
tell you.
that difference impact your personal life?
I'll tell you how it made a difference, but I'm not gonna say my vote impacted the outcome. Okay, like, because you're right. Like I said, people have different strategies with the way they vote. They'll just vote for who they think is gonna win, or they'll vote for who they think is the best contender against who might win. Right? Like you either vote PC or liberal. But what has voting for me brought me in terms of the change in my life is awareness of what's going on in my country and how it's going to impact me financially, how it's going to impact like my family, like perhaps even future generations. Like now I know more. Had I not, if I stayed to what I learned in school, grade school, and then continued with high school to even university of just following what my parents voted, I'd have no knowledge of what was going on in the country. I
Now
still
let
have
me ask.
very little knowledge of what's going on in the country because like a lot of these names I don't even recognize. I don't even know these faces. I don't watch the debates on TV. I don't watch any of that because I've chosen not to participate at a level where other people have, where they're very involved and knowledgeable. But go ahead, you can ask the question.
Okay, so you're saying because you're voting, it's bettered your awareness of how your society is run and how you can provide for your family, et cetera, in the future, right?
Well, yeah, I understand. Like, I can understand now, like, where my money's going. Why are my tax rates this much? Like, why does
Okay.
it cost this much for me to like pay for like insurance or
Okay.
fines and shit? And
If
and
you didn't,
mhm.
if you didn't vote,
Yeah,
could you still know all of that information?
could I still? Yeah, but tell
Okay.
me, what kind of person would know all that information and not vote?
Okay. I don't. I
They're
don't
kind
think
of
those
they
two. I
could
don't
they
think those two are what do they call them? Mutually exclusive, or
no, but they
how do
come hand in hand. If you think about it, like,
do they?
tell me, you don't vote, right? So how much do you actually know of what's going on in the country? they
But
they
if I
might not
wanted to,
be contributing factors for each other, but they are correlated. I'd
but
say.
I can guarantee you, if I wanted to know all that stuff, I could, and it
And you
probably
still
wouldn't
choose not to vote.
necessarily. Yeah,
Okay,
because it's the overarching argument. Like, how
but
is this gonna
that's a
impact my life?
hypothetical. If you really want to see the actual like outcome, wouldn't you test that out, like experiment it
Mm,
actually?
I could. All right, let me give you an analogy.
Mm.
Right, you grow up. They say smoking is bad. Smoking is bad. Oh shit, smoking is bad. Don't smoke.
Hmm.
Cool. Like, all right, smoking is bad. It's my duty to not smoke. You get into healthcare, and you're like, oh man, if I know all the shit that's going on with smoking in my body, I'm definitely not gonna smoke. Guess what I'm doing right now?
Right.
Exactly.
You're smoking a cigarette.
No. I'm smoking some weed, but
Okay,
same
that's not a
analogy.
cigarette. I mean, it's a little different,
No,
but
same. They were like, yeah, smoking weed is bad. Pot is bad for you. Gonna rot your brain.
right.
And then I found out half the nurses smoke pot. It's just
Okay.
like, yeah, those two things are, they could go together, but they don't necessarily have to. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
No, I know you
Okay.
are. I know you are. I know. I get it. But there's nothing wrong with what you're saying. But at the same time, the reasons for smoking, let's say, more than half those nurses smoke pot. Are you
Okay.
saying those reasons are only solely based on knowing the health repercussions of it?
No, the only reason I said that was because your argument was, how could you not vote after knowing so much about your government? So my counter to that is, how could you still smoke after knowing smoking causes cancer and kills people? It's just like, people just do what they want,
Well,
you
addiction
know?
is one. Like all those cigarette smokers started one way, but later
Okay.
on, the cigarette companies were forced by the government to put on the labels on the boxes all the health risks and like pictures of like lungs and hearts that have gone through like years of cigarette smoke, and they have to put that on the boxes now. Yet people still buy the cigarettes. Like
And we know,
that's addiction. Like
okay, fair. And we know people in general are lazy and indifferent.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, okay, well,
They'll stick to their ways, right?
Yeah, so it's like that's what I'm saying about the voting thing. It's like, okay, yeah, I could still know all this, but I'm not fucking staying in that line. Fuck that.
Right. I get what you're saying, that's the tendency of people's behavior because of laziness and like
just nonchalantness.
It's what they're used to. It's tradition for them already, or lack thereof, right? So the promotion here is like, I'm not trying to push people who put no value in voting, because if you still don't put value in the actual vote for yourself, then yeah, it's going to hold the same value for you forever, even if you vote or not. If you don't put actual value in it yourself, it means nothing to you. Mm-hmm. The purpose I think of having this discussion is I think in my objective with the podcast is there is value in that vote.
Okay.
And I want to explain, not explain, but like I'd like to describe what I think that value could be. I'm not saying it can be in hard terms, statistical, like this is what's going to happen if you do vote, because I don't know. That's the glory of the democracy. It's a secret ballot. Like, no, you're not going to be able to calculate that. It's not like the stock market, even with like inside trading. Like, you don't know what the outcome's going to be until it's counted. So, outside of that, let me just go through the chat here. People are saying, if you really want people to vote, hold on here, I'm a little back behind. If you want 100% participation, try giving a $100 certificate for those who voted. The percent will skyrocket. 10 out of 10 people will vote if that was the case. And then Dan says $300 million in Canada, $3 billion in the US. That's peanuts to government. Dan says, but what government wants to give free money? Well, that's the ERB right there. Day says that the one that keeps printing them for free. Oh, Dan says too many issues. Lol, I guess that I meant was it had direct reward to those voted, even if it was $50. Okay. Obviously, Day, if you give any kind of like monetary or even any sort of incentive, just like what they're trying to do with the vax, they're trying to give monetary and like reward incentives for getting vaccinations. It's going to drive participation. But that's not, I don't think participation has to rest on the government pushing it. Well, vax is a little different, but the vote itself, the value of the vote shouldn't be given with a monetary incentive. The value of the vote should be inherent with the voter. Like, that's, I think, the people on the opposite side of the spectrum from all of us who, from the selection of us who are on the other extreme end, where it's like, it's negligible, I can't actually make an actual difference. The opposite side of the spectrum, where they're passionate about the vote and they think it is your duty because of people have died fighting for this right, and like this country was built on this format. They put a lot of value in something that they have no extra incentive, money or not. You're going to give them money or not, they've already inherently put that value for themselves. We're on the opposite side of that spectrum, and I'm going to say it has. I think a lot of it has to do with how we were educated growing up. We did not put enough value in the vote, whereas we think about how hard it was pushed, even by our parents, it was by society, even elementary school. How even starting from elementary school, the dream was to go to college, post-secondary education. The value is like ingrained in our minds at a young age that we need to do this so that we can make a difference and change in our lives. Yet, after we get all our degrees and after thousands of dollars that we spent in student debt as well, a lot of us look back and be like, man, I didn't need to go through school to end up here what I'm doing now. You know, you could have skipped university, still put in less time, whatever, and you'd end up in the same spot, or like maybe not in the same spot. You could have been further ahead, but you wouldn't have known that had you not gone the opposite direction, like not opposite direction, but had you gone the different path. Like, the value is ingrained in our heads, not by ourselves. Like, we didn't put value in college and post-secondary education. It's what the the school system did. It's what our parents did. It's what the society did at the time. So if that similar thing could be done with voting at a young age, I think it's a simple solution. It's a very simple solution and affordable solution to get a higher percentage of voting in these elections. Mike says, hold on, weed is bad than cigs. Weed is much times better than cigs. I find, for me, I'm looking at the small things and policies that would benefit me. A lot of the people expect too much from the government. And then someone else, Flipstar, says, well, paying people to vote would just make more uneducated votes. I agree. And Dede says, true, but at the same time, it could also poke interest for those that didn't before. Yeah, again, I just don't think a monetary incentive is going to give you the same level of what's the word?
Turnout.
Like same depth, not turnout, but like involvement, like actually being invested in what you're voting for. Because if you get paid $100, right? And you're like, oh wow, I get paid $100 now if I go in to vote. You're gonna be like, you don't even care. You could even just eeny meeny miny mo when you're at the ballot. That's not right, and you get $100 for that. Like that's not the same kind of value behind like an educated vote, like a actually invested vote. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, what all this is about, like, Deji, I'm gonna ask you, any time in your life in the last 20 years, did you ever feel or say to yourself, whether it be stuck in traffic, whether you were looking at your paycheck, or you were looking at like your tax deduction at the end of the year, or maybe you were looking at your tuition, or maybe something in your neighborhood, there was like a crime, anything whatsoever, and you're like, I wish that was different. I wish that didn't happen, or I wish this was better. Okay. And if you knew that you had, even if the minuscule kind of like, you had a say, if you knew that you had a say in possibly making a difference toward that little thing that bothered you, why wouldn't you?
I mean, it's not that I wouldn't. I mean, it's like, how much of an impact is that say? Well, like what percentage?
You want result based, right? It's like, I'm only going to do something if it actually does something. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, throwing a rock into a small like puddle is different from throwing it into the ocean.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if you can see the change, it's like, okay, this is my local government is like a little different. Like that, I understand. Like way more than like thinking your vote is really going to impact shit like on a federal level. But it's like, yeah, how big is the pond? If I know that change is going to be affected like relatively sooner than later, oh yeah, I'm gonna go vote.
Right. So you still look at yourself as an individual, right? Like your ideal, you can't, you're choosing to not allow to be a collective. Like imagine like your analogy of throwing a rock in a pond versus throwing a rock in the ocean. But what if you agreed with 200 other people the same thing, and so now you're throwing 200 rocks in the pond versus, or even 200 rocks in the ocean? You're gonna see that though, because there's 200 of you. There's an agreement. There's like a collective. That's what democracy is. Like you look at something and you're like, you know what? I like that too. And then you have other people, you know, under whatever party that you probably subscribe to or like that you're leaning towards, and they're gonna agree with you. And that's how change happens in the country, like by majority. Like you want to have strength in numbers. We look at this vote as a singular act, and it's only going to control you with the one vote. But that's not how the government structure is meant to be looked at. Like not everyone gets a say in that micro way, but everyone can have an impact in a collective. I mean, that's just, isn't that what the point is?
I mean, all of that makes sense to me though.
True, but at the same time, the pokers could, but most likely majority would be the first. Majority would be the first, right? That's just a classic example of voter apathy. No, I know, man. Like, See, Dej, I'm not trying to like attack because I was there.
But I don't feel attacked.
Yeah, I'm just reiterating that. I know you don't, but like at the same time, I'm placing the stance not just in the sake of the counter argument to the devil's advocate, but it's like there's a point why I chose this as the subject. It's like when so I'll use this now, another anecdote kind of example of what happened when I voted. So I'll just be public about my vote. I voted green, and a lot of people will laugh at me when I tell them that. I say I voted green, and they're like, one individual said, "You wasted your vote." Other people would be like, "Well, you threw that vote away," blah blah blah, etc. etc. So because green is so small in this pool of this democracy, green can't pass any bills. Like they're kind of just like this growing little thing that they're trying to make more of an impact, just like NDP was when NDP came out. But I looked at democracy now in terms of I'm idealistic. I've always been idealistic, so I took it also in terms of like what Mike was saying. You look at the policies that matter to you, you read all of them, and then you pick the one that you like the most. I feel like if everyone voted honestly like that, the percentages of these parties would better reflect what they actually are weighted in this country. But the problem is a lot of people feel, let's say in your example where it's like, well, my one vote's not going to make a difference. So they end up going with the majority. They'll go with either liberal or PC. And that's why we've been stuck with liberal PC forever. But you get NDP. Why is NDP growing? If NDP was a new party, decades ago as well, and they were tiny by the first time I heard about NDP, like, why are they growing? Why is it that they're still getting a larger and larger pool?
How long have they been growing?
Let's see. Well, NDP was.
How long have they been growing? And what's this growth rate?
Dude, I'm not doing the research for you. You can look it up because that's not my job. If you want to know, you can Google it right now because I'd be doing the same thing.
Yeah, but, I'm just like.
But I get your point though. It's like, so let's say it takes them a whole lifetime, one person's whole lifetime, like 60 years to reach a point of hitting 20 to 25%.
Okay.
Right? Let's say they first came out, they were like probably less than 5%. At some point they hit 10%. They've been there forever. And now, I don't know where they are now. Let's see. NDP percentage of vote 2019. NDP hit 16% in 2019. Whereas liberal and conservative were around 33, 34. That's just a classic example. This is why we should have first passed the post. The liberals backtracked on that promise. First past the post. I'm not sure what that is, Flipstar, forgive me. But hey there, 16. That's still like negligible, but at the same time it's not, because if well, that's basically what happened with liberals. If whenever liberals want to pass a bill, but they only have 33%, right? All they need is a second, like they just need 20 more percent, or like 30, well, say 30, in that case 33%, and they just needed 17 more percent so they can pass a bill. So you team up with this third party, you negotiate and you come up with something that works for both parties' interests, and then you can pass a bill because it's over majority. Things like that. Like, this is part of strategy, but eventually, NDP is growing in popularity. I think Jagmeet, because of the way he looks, because he appeals to immigrants, like, and the youth, NDP is gonna do better. Like, they're gonna continue to grow in that way. I think representation and like that choice of like the face of the party and the quote unquote the mascot does make a difference in the final outcome. It's basically ranked voting. First past the post is the more fair way of voting. It's basically ranked voting. I'm not sure what. Forgive me, man. I don't know. Unfortunately, I'm not knowledgeable to that extent. I'm just trying, I guess, to add value to everyone's individual vote. And if you think about it too, and if it's about laziness or if it's about like time consumption and like, you know, I get some people are results based. They're like, it's not going to make a difference if I vote or not. But if you think about the investment that it takes just to go into a poll, it's not even once a year. Could be once a year. But like, you know what I mean? Like the amount of effort it takes to cast the vote to feel like you're involved with the country is really minimal. Yoshihiro Trudeau's first term, probably the top issue. Oh, see, I'm learning new things here too. Does that make sense? I'm just trying to, for those people who don't vote, just ask yourself again. I'm gonna just be like, if ever in the last however given many years you had an issue with how things were. Let's say you went to the hospital and you had to wait longer than you wish you had to. Or maybe you didn't have to wait long at all. And you agreed with how things are going well and you would like things to stay the same. You don't want something else to come in and change it. Right? There's another reason to vote. It's not even just if you want things to change, but if you just want things to stay the same. Because if someone else makes a big, loud enough noise, gets a big enough collective of people to agree with them, comes in and makes changes that you didn't want to happen, that's still your life that's going to be affected now because you choose to live in the country. Like that's versus just picking a country and basically being in the same scenario where you didn't have a vote. There's a lot of, I mean, I'm not saying immigrants are going to be resistant to vote. As you said, they come from a place where they didn't vote before or where they get to vote now, or you're only talking about individuals who always had the right to vote but just chose not to, right? Dej?
Okay. Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. I talked too much.
Yeah. No. I was like, when I was like asking the question about what's the percentage difference, that was like me throwing paint at a wall. I wasn't like actually asking you to like Google those numbers like right then and there.
Oh, I know. It was like a rhetorical question.
Okay,
I get
okay.
it. I
All
get
right.
it.
So now the reason I was asking that was because I was trying to establish a timeline of when that NDP figure was negligible up until the point you said it had grown to this significant rate. Because I was going to follow up with, as someone who voted green, do you think if you wanted their policy to impact, do you think voting for them on the basis of like their policies was the most effective way to impact your life? If you know, probably for the next foreseeable future, they're still not going to be majority.
I want, the way I look at the structure of democracy, if I look at a policy and that's what I want, that's what I would vote for. Because if I look at other people's, but this one's being offered and it's not what I want, why would I settle for something, even if they're, perhaps those other ones have a better chance of quote unquote winning, but it's not what I want. So why would I vote for something that I don't want? Does that make sense? Like green, let's say green, I know based on history, based on the last decade.
Okay, so
hold on. Based on the last decade, green is going to be not even minority. It's going to be like so small and negligible. But I know there's a lot of people out there who agree with how much they really want to push, let's say, climate change, like the targets of climate change. Like as you said in the last podcast, we've already passed the point where it's irreversible, right? Like the effects. So like, and there's a lot of people out there who are way more passionate about making that change for climate change than me. So like a lot. So why aren't all those people voting for the best scenario for that climate change? Likely, a lot of them aren't voting. Or maybe they are voting, but they're voting differently. They're voting by, also strategic of like who might win. Let's be realistic here. Like, can you really hit these targets or whatever? But I think, like, in idealistic terms, that's how I want to choose to vote. And I wish that's how everybody voted. Read what your options are. Pick the one you want. Because why settle? Go ahead. You were going to respond. Yeah.
So I'm glad you mentioned that word idealistic. Mm-hmm. Because what I want to ask you is, and not even you. Let's take this away from you. Let's broaden it. If someone that is idealistic, but whose philosophy is, hey, voting is important because it's going to impact your life, right?
Right.
Does the idealistic choice of picking a party that has all the policies that align with me, is that the right choice as opposed to picking one 50-50 chance of going with like the two majorities, and knowing that either one of these is probably going to impact my life more because they're probably going to win, just like by looking at numbers and the pattern of like voting over the last decade or two.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
So before I answer that,
okay,
do you have kind of a leaning towards which strategy makes more sense with you? Like you'd lean towards the majority, the one who is more likely to actually make policies because of the majority vote?
It would depend. It would depend on, like I said, that's why I was prefacing it with, okay, how big was that growth from the NDP to when they were negligible to their significant growth now?
Right.
If it was at a point where, okay, if we all rallied together, we could actually fucking make a dent. That's different.
Right.
If I'm looking at history of the past so years and looking at my lifetime, what is going to have more of an impact? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're going to weigh out what you think is most beneficial to you and act accordingly, right? Yeah.
It's nuanced.
Yeah, it's a nuance. But what's up, Tom?
Just listening, seeing what you guys talking about.
Yeah, it's about voting, duty versus choice, the value of voting. I'll chime in. Well, don't worry. I'll give you definitely. I'll hear your take on it too. Right now, where me and Deji are is the value of the vote, because a lot of non-voters, which I can agree with,
federal election.
Yeah, or any yeah, but a lot of people who don't vote because they feel it has like negligible impact on the outcome.
Doesn't do anything.
Right. And so my side on this is there is value with your vote, and people should just take the time with the vote, because I mean that's one of the benefits and rights and privileges of being Canadian, and it doesn't take a lot of effort to participate, but it could have a beneficial outcome or not, versus not voting.
Yeah.
So Dej, the question you just asked, I voted green, which likely won't make a difference or dent in the next coming election. But if I voted, let's say, strategically to the either PC or Liberal, it's still also one vote in that scenario, right? Like, am I really going to make a huge dent on their 33%, 34% as an individual? It's the same weight on both. If I vote Liberal or if I vote Green, my vote is the same weight. The point, though, is like the strategy itself. I'm going to promote everyone to vote the same way as me, because that's how I think people should vote. On policy, sure, some people might vote on the individual, like I said earlier, their characteristics or personal traits. You want to trust the person who's going to run the country. They seem like a strong like accountable person, like resilient. They're gonna stick to their word. They'll hold their promises. Yeah, that's important too. But at the same time, if what they're promising isn't exactly what you want, even if they're resilient, it still doesn't make sense to me that a person's personality is gonna go over what the party's actually pushing for or not. Unless yeah, they could be lying just to get votes, which all politicians will do at some point to try and win more votes, is to just sugarcoat things. And liberals done it, PC's done it, NDP's done it, like, and they don't follow through, and they don't deliver what they promise. So in that sense, because of that, I feel it solidifies more my understanding of why I should just vote for what I actually want, rather than try to play with the numbers of strategy, play with personal traits and stuff like that. Like I'm gonna read up on the things that are important to me: climate change, education. Pick the platforms that I think align with my values, and then go with that. I'm not gonna support someone even if they think that they're likely gonna win. So, but let's say that party's likely gonna win, but they want to lower taxes. But I'm like, I don't think you should lower taxes because that'll just make other public policies worse or whatever. I'm not gonna vote just because that person's more likely to win, or a better, resilient and stronger public speaker, and all that stuff. Like, platform makes sense to me. That's just for me. But that's already beyond where we're at with you, though. Like, Dej, we're just trying to get you to vote at all, like, period.
Are you a non-voter?
No, I just don't currently vote.
Oh yeah. Well,
yeah.
How old are you?
31.
31. Yeah, it depends, I guess, on a lot of factors, especially if it comes to job, career, all kinds of stuff. For sure. But there is a lot of the people out there that definitely don't want to vote or choose not to.
Like, Tom, did you vote for a long time, or are you just recent voting, or do you still not vote?
I've been voting since I was 21.
Okay.
Now, keep in mind, for the first couple of those years, I voted because my parents just told me to vote.
Exactly, yeah.
My dad had split on politics many years ago. So we vote differently. But I used to vote liberal before I liked Chrétien. But then the whole thing about they started taxing small businesses, so I veered off to,
Okay.
DC. It depends. Like, we have a different party system here. So the way I look at it too is that I watch a lot of politics, especially American politics too. Those are probably the two ones I watch. Obviously, Canadian and America, because they affect us both because they're our biggest trading partner.
Yeah.
Right, and we're their biggest trading partner, so we do a lot together, no matter what people think. So it sways. I always find with politics in Canada is that we do have a pretty good system in some ways, having at least a 4-party system. We do have something called a minority government, a majority government, so that affects when the next elections can be or when it can be called. So that's a good thing. We have a popular vote, which kind of sucks because you just got to win Toronto and it's over. That's why people in the West hardly vote at all.
Okay, yeah. So it is always like an issue because they just feel like they don't have much impact.
Yeah, exactly, because the election's over at a certain time. It doesn't have to run till everyone gets their whole day's work. That's why.
Oh, right.
That's why you never see. You probably never notice this, but you never see those guys campaigning out west. They don't need to.
Right.
You're never going to see Trudeau in Vancouver or Edmonton. They don't necessarily go. Everybody. It's Quebec and Toronto. Mm-hmm. All of Quebec is a good chunk of a voting base, and Toronto.
Yeah.
Everybody. If you win Toronto, you'll 9 times out of 10 win the election. We don't have an electoral here, so that's what the States has, an electoral college, and everyone in the States wants the popular vote. But then if California wins, then you just win the state. You win the election. See, it's the same thing there. If we had an electoral college, then every city or town would have a voice, and you have to campaign because then all those. It's like a scheme on a grade, right? This test is worth 20%. but this is worth 5%, 5%, 5%. It all adds up in the end of the day. So you have to campaign. That's how a lot of people want to see it. So I think there's pros and cons to both. When it comes to the election as an individual, it is your civic duty to vote, I think, because a lot of us that have the ability to vote look around the world. They don't have, a lot of those places do not have that luxury to do so. Look at Afghanistan. look at the Middle East. We're a democratic society. So
apparently Trudeau was in Vancouver 3 days ago.
Well, yeah, he was, but people there, they don't even vote because it's already over. That's why they want that Wexit. They're talking about the Wexit. We need the rest of Canada, no matter what. I don't want to see a split. But it's true. If you win Toronto, that is just way too many votes to get from the rest of the other half of the country.
Well, okay, the civic duty argument, it's like our responsibility to vote. I mean, again, you're not the only person who said that too. Earlier when I posted in my stories that we're going to talk about this, I said voting, duty or choice, and someone replied, was definitely a duty. Everybody should vote.
I think it should be a duty. But here's the thing: a lot of people complain about things will never change. But if you don't like the person that's in power and you never vote, then you're just going to be like that for the rest of your life. Because if you don't vote for anybody, then you're definitely not going to contribute to any kind of change whatsoever. What is it? Only third? How many people actually vote in Canada?
60 something percent.
Is it 55%? Something like that, right?
I looked it up earlier.
I was gonna say it was maybe 70%.
68% in 2015.
There you go. So it's close. So a lot of us do vote, but yet we are only 37 million. So that's really good.
Yeah.
The States has, I think, less than 1/3. Right? So
I think
for us, and we have a 4-party system. So a lot of people, just like you said, you voted green. They do take seats in other places, right?
Mm-hmm.
They've taken a seat or two, and the reality of it too is money, man, and backing and stuff like that, right? The Green Party is fairly new. I read some of their stuff, and it makes sense. It seems like the new Green Deal out in the States and all that, but they haven't had enough that I liked, because I think a lot, that's just the way it is.
So why is it that you think that still 30% of Canadians still won't vote?
Maybe they don't understand the real process of what's going on or how it affects them. That's one thing. Everyone knows the same thing. I hate politicians. They're liars.
Yeah.
All that stuff. They get promises.
Right.
That's true. And you know what? I'm going to use a reference to the States here. Are you telling me that any politician hasn't made a deal with somebody to get where they are today? I find that hard to believe.
Right.
The quid pro quo. Everybody scratches. That's what politics is.
Yeah.
The whole thing is to, don't make it political, especially when we're talking about things in Canada. They're doing that because it's political. Well, yeah, they are politicians. Everything they do is political. They're trying to get your votes. Anything a politician does, it's politically motivated. It has to be. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. So when people try to, what's going on in Canada right now that's huge? Well, I just saw this commercial.
COVID.
Ironically, and it was the PC one, and they said Trump called this. Trudeau called this election when he should be thinking about COVID first, and that's a chin smoke or something like that. I'm like, you know what? He's trying to solidify it, and I get it. I thought the commercial was dumb, even though I am voting PC. I thought, well, what do you expect him to do? Number one, if he could grab an election now, in despite of the whole COVID thing, then fuck, he strategized it right.
Yeah, people are. Okay, so, in my understanding, I guess I was swayed. Obviously, I'm only subject to what I see on my social media, but the general message that I've been getting is that people weren't happy with Trudeau. But
people say they aren't, but we'll see what the election says, because that he's won two already, and I haven't voted for him. And every time I said I'm not voting for him, people thought I was crazy. But now I'm hearing a lot of people saying that they all hate him. But I'm telling you, he just got to win a lot of those. Toronto and Quebec. A lot of old people don't go on social media, man.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, right? So when I don't understand nearly as much as you, like the depth of what you're explaining. Like it's news, not news to me, but like I'm thankful that you're like educating me at this moment too. But when this election got called, people speculated it could have been for one of two reasons. Like one, he wanted out, or two, he wants majority.
Well, yeah, that's probably I think that's the reason why he thinks he's got a chance now.
To get majority.
Because people who are well, it's a big rift now between the vaxxers and the anti-vaxxers, and obviously the people who technically are getting vaccinated, they're thinking that they're leading for the prime minister, right? Because that's what he's encouraging.
Yeah.
I'm vaccinated, but I'm not voting for that guy ever.
But why not? Let's say why not NDP then? You think that's a worthless vote?
You know what? Historically, NDP has always been the party that you got to please. And you know what? You know why I don't like the NDP? I'll tell you why. And this goes back. Is because this is back when Taliban was in charge, before they got eliminated. Jack Layton said we should sit down with the Taliban and maybe negotiate them. Like, you can't sit down with those people. Are you so dumb that you said that? That's what Jack Layton said. Look it up. It's a quote.
Okay.
And it's like, are you kidding me? Look at you can't do that. Like that, if that's what you're thinking. Nah.
Okay.
And the reason I don't like I really despise now the liberals is because they tried to pull a coalition government against Harper. You know who the Daniel Ignatieff is? He was the former leader before. He lost so many seats. That's why he left and Trudeau came in. But he tried to form a coalition government with a separatist group, the Bloc des Québécois. Like, that's how desperate the liberals were. They were willing to team up with a separatist party to try to overthrow PC. Yeah.
Oh, damn. Oh.
That's what happened 10 years ago.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so that's why there's a lot of history. But do I like NDP? You know, here's a funny story. I vote NDP in the provincial parliament because the lady around here in my neighborhood for MPP does a pretty good job.
Yeah, she's cool. So, yeah.
Irene Matheson, and she's NDP, but that's just for member provincial parliament.
Right.
So.
Okay.
So I think that what people should do is, if you're gonna vote, obviously, like you said, see what the platform is, and I think realistically, you should not like everything everybody says, but there should be something that you like more of out of every candidate.
Right.
I don't think there's such thing as liking every single platform, every single thing in their platform, because if you do, just like you said, chances are they're not going to fulfill some of those things.
Yeah. Okay, so Tom, how would you? Okay, for the people out there who don't vote, and they don't vote because obviously, probably underlying there's a little bit of like, maybe like some laziness or like a desire not to partake in the whole politics and the greed and the corruption of politics. They don't even want to be a part of it, so they're turned off by the whole system, right? So they don't even want to be a part of it by voting. Like, what would you say to those people? Why, like, to gain value on the vote itself? Like, why should they vote, even if they think that their vote's not going to make a difference? Two, they're uneducated, so it might not even actually be directed in a way that's progressive, like not even like that's actually productive. Do you think people like that, people who have no idea of what's going on in Canada, politics wise, government wise, like? Well,
I would say number one, obviously I'm going to speak to people who are 18 and over, but sometimes 18 and over, I'll say, do you work?
Right.
A lot of people, well, most people, I guess, they work, right?
Yeah.
You hate paying all these taxes. And Bobby say, yeah. Well, then who do you think is the man that put that in charge? Do you want to keep him there forever? Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the easiest way to start. You hate paying these high taxes? Well, then why do you not vote and complain about the taxes? You know, like the people, if the guy in charge right now is the one that raised the taxes, why don't you try to get someone else in there at least? So.
Right. But if they say, yeah, but I don't know who's, like, would you say it's even in their favor to ask someone and be like, yo, who should I vote for?
Ask your
like
parents.
Well, that's how we've been all voting since.
Yeah, ask your parents, you do have to you do have to. You could accidentally fall into politics, or you can learn it from somebody. But a lot of the old school people have a more in-depth, I think, on it, because things were a little bit different, and they really do it old school ways, especially when it comes to money and taxes and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
money is always going to be the factor.
Yeah.
And you should ask people, why do you vote for them when it comes to money or taxes? That's probably the easiest thing, because everybody hates taxes,
Mhm.
but it's never going to go away. But that's probably, I mean, you got to find a thing that you're for, a platform. And I think the two most popular things right now is definitely something to do with the environment, like the climate.
Yep.
That's probably one of the biggest ones, and something to do with taxes. That's probably the two biggest ones. After
Yeah.
that, it's probably your subgroups, right? Of your economic relations and all that kind of stuff. But that's really in-depth stuff. But how does Canada, for most people right now, and everyone talks about the climate, whether you're for it or not, but I think everyone knows something about that. Find out which party and what they plan to do with it, with their carbon footprinting and all that stuff. Like that's probably one way to get involved, because it's not necessarily about the money, right, and all that, but that is a big topic right now, and I think a lot of people could probably understand that particular topic better. Like, what do you plan to do about the deforestation and all that stuff, or
pipelines or not,
pipelines and stuff like that. That
going
probably is
electric
probably
by
more,
2030.
like, can we eliminate fossil fuels and all that stuff? That's probably something, if you follow that part of the politics, maybe most people would probably be more interested in it.
Yeah.
Especially this young gen.
For sure. Yeah, I think youth vote.
That's a good place to start.
Youth vote, I'd say, leans to the left for the most part, and like old people lean to the right for the most part. And like,
yes, I see that, and there's so many different factors of why. And I don't think anybody's wrong or right, but I find that people of this generation now, there really are a lot of followers and really don't actually read everything that they see.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that will just see a headline and then share it. I'm like, did you even read this?
Right.
And you're sharing it, right?
Yeah.
That's where a lot of people get unfortunately, social media is the worst place to find anything when it comes to information. If you want to find anything, you could find it there, but it's just like water. How good is the source?
Is it accurate? Yeah. But
yeah,
I mean, I agree with you. Like, those are the parts, those are the issues that say that I'm most invested in too: climate and taxation, and well, another one is like education, but I couldn't find anything about that. But even there's other platforms that people are passionate about, if it's like racial equality and like
immigration, all kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah,
right. There's kinds of stuff.
It's kind of, it's interesting stuff too, to like read about and get and like gain knowledge. But to the individual who feels that their vote is meaningless, like, even if you tell them about things they care about, but they don't even think their one vote's going to make a difference, how do we add value to that? How do we get them to look at themselves?
It's just like anything else, right? Like, if you want to, if you're gonna complain about it, but you don't do anything about it, then
just being a hypocrite.
Yeah, stop being a hypocrite. I mean, most people will hear that criticism all the time, but then they'll say they don't care.
Yeah.
Honestly, I do. I'm at that age right now, especially, you'll probably meet a lot of people like that, is that when people start complaining about politics, I'll ask them straight up, do you even vote, dude? And if they get angry, chances are that means they don't.
Yeah.
It's like, then why are you complaining? Because you don't even care about the change so much that you won't even vote. That's what I kind of leave it at that. I think it has to obviously resonate, but affect you too. So that's why a lot of people who are in business, chances are they vote, or small business owners, all kind of stuff, they vote.
Yeah.
But if you're a student, you're not there yet, and a lot of young students, they don't know the impact yet of the outside world until they start finding where they belong on it. Right? Because when you're a student, you're still kind of protected of the, you're still here to learn and all that kind of stuff.
Like, that's why when you mentioned like ask your parents, I get that. When you're a student, they're in the workforce, they're thinking about like things that are going to be affecting us within the next decade. It's going to be our thing that we have to deal with. But at this age, if we're in our 30s, our parents are going into retirement, so it may not quite align anymore, like, or their strategies or their understanding of how they should vote might not be, they might not even think the same way about climate change than you, because like they're old school, right?
Yep.
So it's like, I get that it's
Sometimes
easy.
you could be blunt with these people too if you don't care about their feelings, right? But it's hard to say because like it's your choice to and not to. I mean, you have the option to vote, and like you said, a lot of people, well, at least a good number of people exercise their right to vote. But you know what? What if you vote? What did it do to you? Did it break your leg? Was it so stressful? Like it's really
right.
When you think about it, you don't even have to tell anybody who you voted for. But
See,
that's a big thing right now, right?
Yeah, it's a secret, right? Like, and
just say you voted. But now it's a big thing.
When you call it a duty, here's the thing: when you call it a duty to vote, and you're talking to somebody who's already pro-voting, that's an easy like win there, because they agree the fact that it's a responsibility. But when you talk to a non-voter and you call it a duty, that adds to their plate of responsibilities that they already don't want to do. So it's like, I think it's how we were raised.
Like, what do you have? Like, it only happens. It's not like it's a surprise in election. We know about this election for how many months, and I don't know. I find it sometimes, and this is going to be really blunt, either A, you're too lazy to do it, or T, you're just one of those people that are never going to really do anything anyway, and you just walk around with a sad face all the time and complain. Nobody likes to hear about complainers, man.
Yeah. No, straight honestly, up, man, I'll admit, for a long period, when I became legal voting age, it was just, hey, I asked my parents, what are you guys voting for? I vote the same thing. And then eventually, for like a good stretch, I just didn't vote, because I was like, oh man, there's an election? I wasn't even paying attention. But now with COVID, we're at home, we're in front of social media, we're gonna see that, hey, it's voting time. It's all over our face.
That's why Trudeau pulled that off right now, because everybody's watching them.
Everyone's paying attention, yeah. So it's
everyone's watching the media, and it's all COVID related. So, and it's gonna be. Here's what I think. I think that it'll be a lot closer. The last 2 years, I thought Trudeau was gonna lose by a long shot. I thought he was gonna get beat bad, but nope, I was wrong both times. I think this time it will be a little bit closer, because basically everyone gravitated. Trudeau's the power for vaccinations. That's what it seems like to me out there. Yeah. And the other parties are trying to say no to vaccinations. That's why watch out for the People's Party of Canada. They might steal some votes too, just because they said they don't want the passport. And that will dip into the 33% of both of those parties.
Yeah,
percent. But then now it's going to be close, because NDP will probably come in third, and they could take a good 15%. But then if you have the People's Party taking another 5 or so, wow. I mean, it's going to be crazy.
So, chat here on Twitch was saying earlier when you mentioned Leighton. Sorry for the late call out, Flipstar. But yeah, earlier when you mentioned Leighton with the whole Taliban thing. He mentioned, well, everyone left Afghanistan to the Taliban just a week ago. So eventually it came to a point where they were in communication to, like, to, I guess, but sit down and discuss with them. I know that's a long time ago.
It was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, you can't sit down with the Taliban. So are we recognizing them as the government? Canada hasn't done it yet, because
I don't think
the only people that recognize them as a legitimate government is China and Russia.
Right.
And you know why? Here's my theory on it. It's because they have all those U.S. weapons.
Yeah, they're a military power, and so
they want access to that technology, so they could probably backtrack all that, and then then the Americans will have to say, shit, they know how our shit works, and they know how our defenses work, because the United States are not going to get that stuff back, and you'd be stupid to pay for it back. So if Canada were to recognize the Taliban as a recognized government, that will make me upset, because we just left for them to take it over. There was a president there, and we trained all these guys, and they chickened out like 300,000 man army lost to a bunch of terrorists hiding. Like, that's how either they weren't ready to fight and they were just being afraid. But there's not 300,000 Taliban, from what I know.
Okay.
You can't hide that many people out in the mountains without being seen. So.
Apparently, chat says that U.S. disabled all their gear before they left.
They should, but you could still backtrack the hardware. right? You'll know how things fit, and that's even for Chinese people. You don't know, man. They're pretty crafty. They can figure it out.
They reverse engineer everything and copy it. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's possible, right? So
Mike
that's
also
another touchy
said,
subject right now because I think Canada still has some troops there, right?
yeah,
But
Mike,
they might
Mike,
pull them all.
back to just in terms of like reasons to not vote. Mike said that another thing to consider, there are certain parties out there that benefit more from low voter count or low voter turnout, and a lot of people don't vote also because they don't trust the government. They just the distrust of the government. But even with
that's
that,
another one.
for that example, I'm gonna say excuse, I don't think it's valid really, because even if you don't trust it, they're still running your life. You know, it's like you should, and if they're giving you any kind of if they're giving you any sort of like involvement in that, then
it's always been a good one. I don't trust the government. Okay, then since we live in
why
a
are you here?
democratic society, why don't you move to Afghanistan?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that's the opposite. You know, there's really no middle ground. I mean, the government. I think Canada is one of the best countries in the world, and yes, politicians are shiesty, but the majority of them, you know, are gonna run it the way they want to, and you know, you have to back a pony anyway if you feel like it. So that's the way it is. We can't abolish the government. So I mean, you hate the government. I don't like them at times either, but do I trust them all the time? You know what? Not all the time. Our government's better than others. So
yeah, I mean, it's one of I was gonna say that too. Like, it's one of the factors of our national pride. We take pride in that we're democratic and we're a fair country. We have universal health care, and like everyone says that. It's like, yeah, my healthcare is free. My healthcare is free, and we flaunt that anywhere in the world. But like, there's a reason why that's there, and like. And then, okay, so chat's asking, what's this guy's biggest issue for voting, just out of curiosity? So, me and Tom are, I guess, we're gonna vote. And it's not to say Deji might or might not. I just think there's a lot of people out there, youth, who were like me, I guess 5, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, where I just didn't give it the time. And I'm just trying to appeal to those individuals. Like, how do we get those people to participate? Because they have to somehow create value for it. They're not going to just listen to people who are going to say, it's your duty to vote. They're not going to listen to those people. They're not going to listen to people who be like, yo, man, you know, just ask your parents. Because then again, it's not their worth. It's like they're just going to feed into someone else's worth. So my argument, not argument, but like what I think is it's not promoted enough when we're young in school or in even growing up from our family. It's not a value that's been ingrained in like immigrants and youth, that it's that important, unless those individuals, I don't know, went to political science, or they went to like into law, or they own their own business, where, you know, if you get like the general majority of graduates from school who want to go into, I don't know, whatever line of work that they like, and they've just been so caught up on like career or like personal growth or whatever like that, and they're just happy with the way things are in Canada, and they probably think that there's no way Canada will fuck up their life. It's safe to be here. We're in good hands. I can leave it to other people to figure out. A lot of people, I think, are that. It's not even laziness. I think laziness is part of it. But a lot of people will be like, you know what? They know more than me. I'll leave it to them to take care of. I think a lot of people think that way. And it's just, how do we steer away from that? And I think it's just a matter of how it was.
You know, you hit on the nail, right? It's just like a lot of people. It'd be kind of interesting, though, right? Let's say we do something radical, like it's just like, well, since you haven't voted for 10 years, you just lost your rights to vote for the rest of your life. Would that piss you off? Would people, you know, like, right? Like, how would people react to that? You know, sometimes you got to ask people those questions. If you don't care to vote, my assumption is you don't care who's in power. But most people will say, oh, I care who's in power. But then how come you ain't doing it? You're not even doing your part. Like, I always ask a person that doesn't vote is like, so since you don't like the vote, it doesn't matter, then you really don't care who's prime minister. But then they'll say, well, I don't like, so.
Yeah, everyone's going to be like, you either like Trudeau or you don't. It's like you either like
Yeah, how
Trudeau or
much
you
more
don't.
pushing do you need?
And they're like,
I
well,
just
if you
thought
don't
about that
vote,
sitting right there.
yeah, well, that makes sense, man. But like, let's say, do you think those people, if you're like, okay, you haven't voted in the last 10 years, that means
Yeah.
we're gonna take you. You can't vote ever again. Do
Yeah,
you
imagine
think?
if they did that. I just thought about that sitting
Do
there
you?
right there.
Yeah, but do
Would
you
that
think they'd
push
fight?
people?
Do you think they'd fight to keep it? Do you think they'd fight to protect their vote?
Well, I'm gonna think about this in simple terms. How hard is it to go there and vote? I don't think it's tough at all to get my ass up there to vote
Yeah.
for, I don't know, 10 minutes.
But the thing is, that's the
Every 4
action.
years.
It's the action, right? I think a lot of this too is the investment of time to figure out who you should vote for, and
Well,
like,
that's the learning part, right? Because
Yeah.
it's just like anything else. It's like learning anything. Everybody we'll use COD as an example.
okay,
We all spend lots of hours, and for whatever reason, some guys are just amazing, just naturally, and me, I suck, even though I like playing it,
yeah,
right? So you do have to invest your time to understand the game and
right,
see, and it might take some people, many years, but a lot of the times they get into it because it affected them somehow when it came to a monetary policy of some sort. That's where always is like, the government or something like that. But
Yeah.
this one right here, right now, is a big one because it's so easy. The pushing of the passports and the COVID. This is what's making everyone, I think, listen right now. So it's kind of interesting. It's going to
Yeah.
be an interesting one because, see, it's so easy to say Trudeau is pushing vaccines, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Like he's pushing vaccines, he's pushing the passport, all levels of government. So now it's making people really listen. So this is going to be one of those. Is it an outlier? I don't know, but I think for the first
true.
time we might actually get some pretty good record numbers here for
Yeah.
an election.
That's true.
Just because
Actually,
it's an easy platform to understand. There's
Yeah.
this guy says he wants passports, and damn, I know so many people who are
Who
on
don't.
both sides of the fence, right?
Yeah.
It's 50-50.
I actually, I
anywhere
don't
you
even,
go.
I don't even know where I am on that. Like,
Well,
I don't know where I am. On
it's going to be what people, I think, at the simplest base thing, they're going to vote. Maybe the people are going to vote because this guy wants no mandatory passport. That might be good enough to get people start rolling in politics and voting.
Yeah.
Like it could be just just like you said, this thing everyone's paying attention because I've never heard so much roar from
Yeah.
every age group.
Yeah.
So.
Yo, Dej.
I think people will actually. There might be some record numbers here voting. This was by accident. This pandemic has
Yeah.
probably made more people aware in politics more than probably in the last 25 years for sure. And that's why I'm very. I can't wait to vote next Monday.
Everyone's on their device. Everyone's at home in front of their screen.
And it's
Like,
simple as,
it's
I
in
don't
our
want
face.
It's my right not to take it. Where you're gonna make it mandatory. So that's got everybody listening. Everybody.
Yo, Dej, you still there?
Yep.
What do you? I don't know. Not to put you on the spot, but like, what about that in terms of September 22? We saw it when we went to Firkin. We won't be able to eat inside if we don't have
Exactly.
like the
Proof.
a proof of double vax. Like, what's your stance on that? Do you have a stance on that?
Well, my
can't go
stance
to a
is
bar.
unique.
Yeah.
My stance is unique because I work in healthcare, right? So
Mhm.
like, the home I worked at like had over 60 people die from COVID. So it's like, I see both sides of it, I see like, we're not trying to get anyone sick. If you're not vaxxed, fuck off. But I see the part that's like, I'm not gonna like get a vaccine just because I want to eat here. Like, are you crazy?
Right.
So
Yeah.
Yeah,
tough, man.
It's a tough one, it's a tough one because I chose to be double vaccinated, so I'm complying right now. But
Yeah.
I feel that it's everyone's right to take it or not take it. And
Yeah.
people said, getting the debates like, well, if they don't want it, then they shouldn't have to wait, like whatever. I don't think that you should make people take a vaccine.
But this mandate.
Even though
Sorry,
it could help,
Tom.
it could help.
Quick question. Like,
Yeah.
the government stepping in to these businesses having to
I know.
deploy this rule. Why? why wouldn't the businesses just be able to choose for themselves?
That's what I said, because
that's fair.
I was wondering, like, do the mom and pop shops have to do this too? I can understand big corporates, but I've
Right.
been asking, like, does the mom and pop have to enforce these too? Like, I don't
Mm.
know where it stands on that, but apparently, any type of, if you're registered under the Better Business Bureau, you're gonna be, you're gonna have to enforce these legislations. Like, let's say you own a little coffee shop in Little Italy that only has like 6 people in it, and you said, no, I don't wanna, I don't care who comes
Yeah.
in. Are they gonna? Are they gonna enforce these fines? I don't know. Like,
So it's chat here. Flipstar says non-essential services don't have to deploy that mandate. I guess.
so I could still train, and I could be there training on the mats with someone who's not vaccinated.
If the facility or the company that you're training in chooses not to enforce it, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know, because I got the update from my coach and saying this is what's been sent to us. So we do have to be double vaccinated to get on those mats there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but
I don't know.
I guess that's a corporate choice. Yes, you're right. Like, I'm shooting events like after September 22 at venues now, where I guess that now these clients have to choose their venues accordingly, because if the venue is enforcing the fact that everyone who's present has to be double vaxxed, that affects your guest list. Obviously not everyone can come, so you have to all see alignment there with like all your guests.
Yeah, you said you worked in healthcare.
Yeah.
Are you dealing with patients?
Yeah.
Do patients have the choice to say I don't want the vaccine, or they're just injecting them anyway? Like, how does this work?
No.
Yeah,
they
in
have
that
the choice.
home,
They have
at
the
that
choice to say
home.
no.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, it's at home. Okay.
No, not at home. Sorry, I was asking. He worked at a home before.
Group home. Yeah. So did they inject every single patient, even though they do still have the right to say I don't want this vaccine?
No, they have to get the consent first, or
Okay. So there are chances are there's people in there that are not vaccinated.
Yeah, like 1 or 2.
Yeah. So what happens on the 22nd? Do they kick them out of that home?
No. They just
I guess.
Right.
Yeah. Like if they
the workers would have to be vaccinated, I guess.
Yeah.
The workers, yes. The workers,
Yeah, I don't.
They're getting put on a leave of absence on the 12th of October.
Because to the best of my knowledge, being vaccinated doesn't prevent you from getting the sickness anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Still carry it. If someone is beside me who has COVID and I'm vaccinated, my chances of I still have the same chances of getting it, but my body could technically supposedly fight it better.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? They're instilling the fear that if you get COVID, and I've been hearing this a lot, and I don't think it's accurate, but correct me if I'm wrong. People are saying that, if you get the vaccination, it prevents your chances of getting. I said, no, I don't think
that's
the vaccine
incorrect.
is a wall. It's not like a condom. You put it on, you're not going to get no fucking,
Yeah.
The vaccine's there to get it when that virus hits your system.
See, yeah. So, Flipstar says it here. Vaccination prevents you from getting ill and going to the hospital. And so the whole mandate, the objective is to minimize and hopefully prevent reaching capacity again in the hospitals. Like you don't want the ICUs filled up again, and where we can't provide healthcare for anybody because all these people are sick with COVID. It's like
are the ICUs really full? I don't know, because in London it wasn't full here.
Well, I know numbers are back up. I mean, we were low, we were down for a bit, and now the fourth wave's here. Who knows, man? What it's gonna look like in the next 2 weeks?
Because I know people who are married to nurses, and I know nurses that said their wings weren't that full. Yeah, in a lot of periods of time, even though they were putting it out there. So I'm just curious to know, what's going to happen.
That's true. Alberta's ridiculous now.
Right? I don't know. See, Ontario, they just said 553 new cases yesterday, or was that middle? I can't remember. It was a very low number and no deaths. I'm like, wow, that's awesome. At least here in Southwest Ontario, that's not bad.
Wow, really?
553. So.
Yeah. So Flipstar, I'm saying that too. I remember 2-3 months ago, that was all we saw on media, social media, where all the nurses were pissed off that they're overworked and they're like people were quitting, and like mental health for nurses was like messed up because they like all these people are dying, and they were
I think it's in the emergency,
yeah.
right?
Oh,
That's in
ICUs
the
and ERs, I guess, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
That's for sure, because everyone came in for something, and it could have been COVID related. Yeah, those people. Yeah, but when the people who were actually staying in the floors that were staying there, I don't think they were as hectic compared to the emergency rooms for sure.
yeah.
Emergency rooms were definitely crazy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll figure it out with the Delta variants here. September 22nd, we'll see where all the riffles are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a
Like,
lot of people out there who aren't vaxxed, but they're gonna want to go to the bar,
100%.
and like they're gonna want, you know, St. Patrick's Day is not too far along from then, and
We've
feel
been
like
reading how many vials have we wasted, right? We've wasted like hundreds of thousands because no one's taken them.
oh yeah, yeah,
That was reported like a couple of weeks ago that, you know, and I think it was Ford that was so mad. You said, like, why are we dumping these? So
yeah.
it just lets you know there's not a lot of people taking them, even though the report are still positive that people are taking. But chances are, look to the left, look to the right. As of right now, it's still 50-50. Just people won't say.
Well, what I'm saying is this, like, there's this push on these vaxes, right? And as you said, again, the vax doesn't prevent you from getting it.
No.
So it's like
it's a defense.
But if you mandate masks and social distancing in the same establishment,
Yeah.
or like again, you're just gonna do patio, you just can't be indoors for the people who aren't vaxxed, I guess. I mean,
don't
the
know.
mask and the distancing does more to actually prevent from getting it. Actually, no. There's something
I don't
about
know.
15
See,
minutes.
That's
15
the kind
minutes.
of thing
in
that's the rest of the world ain't doing it. So what the hell are we doing? But,
right.
you know,
Well,
like,
you know, we could be the forefront. It could be a trend.
we could be the
we'll set-
forefront, but we have a very small population.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to look at other countries that have like quadruple us and they're moving forward, then why are we sitting here in this massive, large country? You know, like there's only 37 million and 1/3 of it is right here where we are. So
Yeah.
it's going to be around. And you know what? I'm not scared to stand beside someone that's unvaccinated.
Yeah.
I'm vaccinated. So technically,
If they
I've
get
done
me
everything I'm
sick, it's
supposed
like,
to do.
all right, I did what I could. It's like, it's
if
not
I
gonna,
get sick, well, then I get sick. That's just what it is. Like, well, you got to be more careful. Look, I can go to a restaurant and sit with 25 people, then we'll all take off our masks anyway.
yeah.
Because you're allowed to. So what's
Yeah.
the difference?
Exactly. Yeah.
You know,
Well, the only difference is after September 22nd, all those people
Yeah.
at that table will be double vaxxed.
Don't worry, man. There's a lot of outdoor barbecues. There's
Yeah.
a lot of, you can have 50 people, right?
Yeah. Well,
There's-
the people are also saying too, if you get the vax, even if you do get COVID, because your symptoms are milder, you're less, you're just a little bit less likely to transmit to others because you won't be coughing
You
up
have
a
a better
storm and like,
chance.
yeah, like, you know,
That
well,
survival
but you
rate
gotta
hasn't
quarantine
changed, right?
anyway. You gotta quarantine anyway.
Survival
Really,
rate hasn't changed, right? It's still 98.7% survival rate, right?
I don't know, man. I don't know what the Delta has done. I don't know.
Well,
Like
the
this is the
Delta
original.
is,
This is the original vax too. So it's like
I
it
think what
wasn't.
they're talking about is that the people who are getting the Delta, a lot of them are vaccinated. So maybe they're just putting the scare in us.
They are. I thought. Well, no.
There's
I
people
thought.
that they had. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like, if we're all vaccinated, then, or a lot of us are vaccinated, then who cares if a couple people run around without unvaxxed? That's okay. We should,
Well, yeah.
you know,
That's
we should.
that's what I was originally hoping for, herd immunity, but that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Majority of people in hospital are unvaxxed. Yeah, that's what I heard as well. That's
Mhm.
chat said that, but okay. Well, I mean, I think there's kind of a consensus with who's here right now in this chat, like Flipstar, Tom, and like we understand the value of the vote, and we understand there's a lot of people out there, even within the circle too, who may not participate in the vote because of how they evaluate it, and I'm not knocking those. I'm just asking them to to maybe try and look at it in a different way, because I think there is value there. There's actually worth to that, and it does give you at least a little bit more ownership on what you can expect for your life, because like you've had a say. Even if you vote one way and it doesn't go your way, at least you have that kind of sense of pride, not even just duty, but that pride that you did what you could to
Sure,
fight for what you believed in.
exactly.
Like that's the point of being here in Canada. That's be part
Like
of
if you
being
have people
Canadian.
listening here right now, and I'll tell you this: if you vote, if you don't vote and you complain, I really won't listen to you because you real. But if you vote and you lost, hey man, we got lots of things to talk about,
Right.
right? Because
And
it's just like it's just you contributed and now you're gonna be you're gonna say why did you vote? There's a lot of things to talk about, but I think people will eventually
Deji, what
slowly.
are you doing, bro?
Sorry, I'm
Are you
cooking, man. My bad, yo.
are you playing pool table or something? You play pool right now?
You will have to find a topic, one of the few popular topics of a platform to gravitate to. I think is the first thing, just like you said.
Yeah.
And right now it's pretty easy, I think. And then after that, you could venture out into other parts of the platform. But I think,
Yeah.
if anything, you have nothing to complain about if you don't go to the dance. So, whatever.
Yeah. And
Yes.
it's not even to say that too. Like a lot of people might be completely comfortable. Or not maybe not comfortable,
Yeah.
but maybe content, or I'll even use the word
Sure.
maybe complacent with how things are, and they're okay with whatever
Yeah.
government shoots their
I don't
way.
know any of
Nothing
those. I
wrong
don't
with
hear a lot of
that.
those people.
Nothing
We
with
need to
right.
hear more from. We need to hear more from those people who don't vote and are content. But
Yeah.
I
But at
don't
the
know.
same time, if they're content, if they like the way things are, that gives
Yeah.
kind of more reason for you to vote for what it's existing then, so that it stays that way. Otherwise, it could change and you might not be happy after the change, right? So
Exactly.
it works in that
Most people
direction
won't do
too.
anything until it hits them first in the face.
Right, right. So that's all I'm saying. Like I
Yeah.
feel for those people, because I was definitely once one of those people for like over a decade where I just didn't participate because I just
Yep.
didn't know anything about it. I didn't want to be involved. I also thought the government can't be trusted. They're all corrupt. There's like crazy Illuminati stuff going on and all that stuff. So, but at the same time, obviously making money, knowing how I'm
Well, you're a
taxed.
sole proprietor now, man, so you're paying attention to no
Yeah,
taxes.
there's definitely the involvement with having my own business definitely made a difference
Yeah,
there too.
for sure.
But I think climate change and education, just seeing how dumb kids are being
Yeah,
these days, like
exactly. You have to find something.
I would really
Because
like our kids to be smarter in the future, not dumber. So
the only people that could do what you want them to do in regards of what you think in your head are actually the people that you're going to vote for. It's not like for the most chance you have as much power, but you gotta in the short term is like the people who could do all these kind of changes that you're hoping for are the people up there. You
yeah,
can start at the ground level, but it'll take me a lot longer to make any policy changes.
I'm not saying I've made leaps and bounds to where I was before, but I think an
Yeah.
easy route to start is just pick one or two things you care about now,
Exactly.
and then do the
What do you
comparison
like most?
and vote in the way that you think matches align with what's important to you now.
Pretend it's American
Simple.
Idol or something,
Simple.
man.
Yeah.
Keep it simple. Pick
Yeah.
one thing. Oh, I like the way those shoes look. I'm going to vote for that. Go with that. And if you voted for them and then they win and they suck, then vote for somebody else. It's pretty
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah, that's
You gotta-
that's the benefit of having terms. Like you don't have to stick
Yeah.
with your mistake forever. If
No.
you can learn from your mistakes too. So I mean, yeah, you said it too. You used to vote liberal and then you voted PC. That's surprising to
Yeah.
me actually. I've never voted PC, but
Oh yeah,
I definitely veered
just
away
like,
from
I
liberal
voted
over the
for
years.
Ford, and then I'm like, oof, just like, oh, he hasn't made me too happy, but he does a few things, but he hasn't really done the best job. But I'm not scared. I voted for him because I know I ain't the only one.
Right,
So,
right.
uh, So,
Yeah.
but have I been? He's 50-50. I was really excited in the beginning because he did a few things, but after that, I was just like, oof. I don't know if I'm gonna vote for you again.
Yeah, I was saying that too. Other people vote differently when they're like,
Yeah.
they'll just vote to think because obviously the superpowers are PC and liberal, so they'll
Yeah.
vote for who they think will win among those two. It's almost like
Well,
Republicans versus
Exactly.
Democrats. So,
Like you got to really. This time it's pretty simple. It's COVID, but the last election was pretty close. But Trudeau still pulled it up. But Trudeau destroyed it because he made something simple. He said, "I'm going to legalize weed." Oh, damn! Everybody fucking voted. Those guys never voted again.
Right.
After that, But
Right.
hey, sometimes you got a nice catchphrase.
Yeah.
And if you pay it right.
Yeah.
If I was a politician, you know what my platform would be? I'd be like in something that would everyone could relate to because everybody has one. I'd be like, I will cut your cell phone bills by 50%. Boom. Everyone would be
Yeah.
like, really? 50%? Wow. Like people can gravitate. So
Oh
try to
man.
find out what
If so-
politicians have.
if someone
And
says something like "I will break up Rogers' monopoly," I'd probably lean towards that too. Like,
oh, it's impossible because I know
yeah.
the federal law on that. So, yeah,
Oh.
you're gonna telecommunicate. I know the law on that one, and that's why it sucks here in Canada. That's why I'd be like, but that's a good platform. We'll put it in a new thing that we're allowed to have outside international companies here, but it's not allowed in Canada.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the easiest thing for sure would be the COVID thing, and the climate and the taxes are probably your best things right now to see where they stand, because
Yeah.
I see a lot of garbage on the internet. I saw this thing about you guys are on internet, and they're talking about the candidates' watches.
Uh-huh.
There was something going on, and they're saying Trudeau wearing a $25,000 watch, Singh was wearing a $15,000 watch, and Aaron O'Toole was wearing a $500 iWatch.
Oh.
I'm like, and then people said like, see, people are saying, I would never vote for a guy that wears an iWatch, doesn't know how to dress. So I'm like, see, but you're probably the same guy that doesn't like rich politicians with money, and Trudeau's wanting this $25,000 watch, right? See,
Wow.
It's just like, and I'm gonna ask this. I saw that meme. I saw that it was all over Facebook, and I'm like, wait, hold on a second. How many of you regular motherfuckers own an iWatch? Tons of you. Tons. So it's funny how social media, that's probably the easiest way to sway voters if you're going to sway, and a lot of it I find out it's not true, but that does steal a lot of votes because people will vote on the simplest things. Like, I like Trudeau's watch, there, I'm voting for him. So it's that simple. If you could take that kind of a vote. So I think on both platforms, whether it be it radio, well, no, it's radio, but TV, social media, any way you could steal a vote or take a vote, you'll do it, regardless if they even understand it. And social media is definitely a big tool. Someone like these, what they call it, influencers. Is that the thing?
Yeah.
They could say the most radical thing that I disagree with, and it's not even true. But there's probably 10,000 people that will just follow in because
believe it.
That's awesome. Yeah. So it's going to be. When it comes to politics, you don't even necessarily have to watch the news. You could just listen to some dude or some girl.
That's so funny. Why doesn't the government go after influencers? Like, that'd be
you can,
all the other
man.
brands
it's freedom
go.
Of speech, man. It's I believe in that too. If someone wants to say, and I'll say this, if you want to follow that person, don't get offended if I think you're crazy. See, you have the right to think. You have the right to listen to that crazy things. I have the right to think you're crazy.
But what I'm saying is, like, like a party approaches, let's say, like, I don't know, one of the top TikTokers right now, and they're like, hey, yo, we'll pay you $2,000 if you promote our party, and they have 2 million followers, or 5 million, 10, or even 4 billion followers. Like, that's money well spent. They'll do that for $2,000.
Like an influencer say, an influencer could sit there and say, like anything, and you get. But the reality is, I think, though, when it comes to politics, politics used to be very private, right? It used to be very private. Nobody talked about it, just like religion and all that. But now everyone's trying to make it known. But people are smart. When it comes to politics, once you start divulging your politics, it's going to be 50-50 who disagree with you for the most time, and 50-50 that 50 agree with you and 50 that don't, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of influencers don't want to, lose that income stream if you're smart.
Oh, yeah, you're gonna lose a follower if you take a political stance. You're right.
Yes, if you take a political stance,
even a religious stance, or you got to be careful. You can get canceled and all that stuff.
A moron. And you know what? He's just gonna ruin Space Jam. I said it.
Mike said it too. It's like high school student council elections. It's all just a popularity contest.
It is, yeah. So like, but it surprisingly, like a lot of there is a lot of like political somewhat talk on the social, and people will judge it based on who they're following,
Yeah.
and that could influence them too. You know, like you could be voting for Jordan Peterson if you listen to him, but then you could listen to Joe Rogan. He talks about politics. Then you could listen to AOC, you know, and Kamala. You know, they all have their little
Yeah.
podcasts, right? So
AOC with
those are
her
votes there. They're
tax the
farming.
rich dress, right? Like,
Tax the rich dress, but she's you know, and she wants her new Green Deal to retrofit every building in New York. I'm like, are you crazy? That's a shit ton of that's a billions of dollars.
well, that's why she wants to tax the rich. That's the they need to
I
afford
know,
it, right?
but you're rich.
I
Have you
I'm
seen
a,
her shirts?
yo,
She's
dude.
selling her AOC shirts for like $100.
Yo, dude, if she's
Hoodies.
willing to pay, she's willing to pay. Like I'm for taxing the rich. I'm for raising taxes, and I'll pay it too. Like if
Like
I
her,
know
her,
if I
her.
know my taxes will go to green initiatives to like
Oh
push
man,
push
yeah. I
that,
should
I'll
send you the
pay.
link for her shirt. Her shirt says "Tax the Rich" on her sweaters. That's her gear. But
Yeah,
they're $150. Like the only people that can buy that are the rich,
yeah.
not your constituents
So
in China.
they get so those rich get to double dip. They get taxed and they pay
Yeah,
for that
they're
sweater.
not
So
stupid to pay for that. So I mean, I don't think the rich and all that. You know what? People make money. We live in a capitalist society. If someone makes money, I don't care. Like I mean, that's just the way it
yeah,
is.
no, I'm
Trust
like,
me, if I have $1 million, I don't want to get taxed either. I don't want to get taxed right now. I don't even have $1 million. So why would someone
really?
who's a millionaire want to get taxed? People
Well,
think they should give up their money.
it's
Well,
not
you don't
it's
have
not
to.
that they should want it, but it just it no one's gonna want to get more taxes. Like I don't want to pay
No,
more,
I don't know.
obviously, regardless
Nobody
of
does.
regardless of what like pay
Bracket
like
you're
sorry
in.
income
Yeah,
tier I'm in. I'm not
yeah,
gonna want to
exactly.
pay more. But
Nobody.
having said that, I am for raising taxes because I know where it would, like, if I know that the platform it's gonna go like towards, let's say, better healthcare, even dental, or putting like optical in there now too for like universal or medication, or better education, better infrastructure on the roads. I get it. Like you want to have, if you want
That's the part we
2030,
want to know.
you know
Absolutely.
yeah, so if I have to pay more money in my taxes, at least I don't have to see exactly, it's not all only coming from my pocket private, like I want a
Yeah.
green Markham, so I have to pay more than like other cities that, if Canada as a nation wants to be more green and like renewable resources and all that stuff, I would be for that, and I would suck it up, and if I get taxed more, I get taxed more. But for the rich, specifically for the rich, it's just their standard of living. What percentage of their wealth are they actually using for their standard of living versus the
hmm
rest of the world? The percentage of their wealth that they have to use for their standard of living, right?
But
So that's
remember, man,
why.
when you're taxing the rich, that's only what 5% of that population. Like right? Like what's rich? Over 200,000? What's like how many
Well,
people?
well,
Like
that's the thing.
that's the
You'd have to
bracket.
calculate, I guess,
Yeah.
average standard of living.
Yeah, but
Like,
like when
or
people
per
say rich,
capita.
like everyone's interpretation of rich is so different, right? Like is
Yeah,
someone who makes $150,000 rich? One hundred
rich.
fifty thousand a year rich? To some people, they think that you make too much money, right?
So,
But
oh wait, Flipstar is saying here, rich people taking advantage of the middle class and poor. Look at Bezos. Trickle down economics is a farce. So are
talking
you
about
saying that if you raise taxes for the rich, it's just going to, fuck up all the lower class too, because
we're the
they're gonna take
majority.
it out. They're gonna take it out on the lower class. Like no, but like workforce. Like let's say you have like the CEO guy, all the top people of corporations who are rich. They're gonna get taxed more. So therefore, they're just gonna figure out a way to like cut costs and like
Loophole
lower
it.
wages and all that
Yeah,
stuff and loophole for their. Is
trust
that
me,
what
that's
is that what
exactly
he's
what people
saying?
do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they'll know where to put their
Yeah,
salary expenses and all that stuff.
but they do that
The way,
anyway. They do that
yeah, they
already,
do that. And Bezos
regardless
hasn't
of the
paid his
tax rate.
taxes. If you look at his reports, he hasn't paid a
Yeah.
lot of taxes in the last how many years? It's crazy.
Right. They do it anyway. So they're gonna do it anyway. So if they have to
Exactly.
pay
That's
more and the
business.
government ends up getting more, I mean they're
Yeah,
gonna do it anyway. So it's
that's
like,
business. So it's
yeah,
just one. And remember, Bezos is just one guy. Like we're only worried about Bezos makes, and you got to tax him. But and the reality is that taxing the rich
well,
is not that solution at all.
look at Buffett
I
though.
don't think
Like
it is.
Buffett taxing him is more than like a lottery winning. Like if
Yeah,
he could
I
fund.
mean, like I said, like like what's the definition of rich, right? Like, is it
Yeah.
people who make $1 million? Like I don't know.
I don't know
When
either.
people say rich, right? Now, keep in mind, people, just because someone makes a lot of money, you don't know what their debt ratio is either. A lot of the people
Yeah,
who flaunt money are pretty leveraged out. I know that being in real estate, man, you
yeah,
make all this money, you can't get a mortgage. What the fuck, dude? And then I
right.
find out what's going on, right? So it's hard to say. What
Well,
that
I
maybe
guess
that's why a
yeah,
lot of people,
that's part of the calculation then, the net,
yeah,
right? Like what
yeah,
it's
your
not
net,
just the rev, it's got to be the net. And
yeah,
trickle down economics is when you don't tax the rich, and the theory is the money goes down the line to the middle class and lower class. Oh yeah, I don't believe that. When you don't tax the rich and the money goes down the line to the middle class and the lower class, I don't
yeah.
see that ever happening.
No,
So
everyone to some degree, if you're working and you have a SIN number, you're paying taxes, right? Some people make more money than others, but some people who understand the tax game know where to put their money and so on and
oh
so
yeah,
forth. So
as a
I
sole
mean,
proprietor, like I
yeah,
can expense stuff, and there's definitely
exactly.
there's
Oh,
like
yeah,
things people. I'm not saying manipulation or things like that, but there's reasons why it's not
it's within your
revenue
right.
isn't the bottom line. The bottom line is net
Yeah,
for sure. So
yeah, within your line in your business, right? Like my gas,
yeah,
and then when I go out to a meeting and have some drinks, that's
yeah, it's a
talking
business
business.
meeting. We're discussing
Yeah, exactly.
future projects.
I'm sure there's people that abuse it like others, but it's just the way it is. Trust me. I'm just like anybody else, man. I hate paying taxes. So
Yeah,
try to minimize that as best I can within
yeah.
my
So you
limits.
just throw it in your RSPs, and
Yeah,
and then you save yourself a little bit there. But
exactly. So
all right. I mean, thanks, Tom. Thank you for coming out. Dej,
yeah, it's
again, as
good.
usual, thanks for being here, man.
Good stuff.
Hopefully people gain a little bit of insight in terms of like the value of their vote, even if they have chosen not to be participating in the past.
Yeah.
I get where you're coming from. I just want to promote and eagerly like kind of give you that like support that you can make a difference. The whole point is the fact
Throw
that
your
you do have
support
a say.
somewhere. 'Cause,
Yeah,
yeah. If
and
you don't like somebody,
if a lot of
support
people
somebody else.
yeah, if a lot of people agree with you, that's how change happens. So
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't take a lot of effort. I don't want to shove it down people's faces. Hey, it's your duty, because no one's gonna accept that like
No.
productively. It is a choice. I still think it's a choice, but I think it's the right choice. Like it's the good choice to make for yourself. Like I want to choose to do this for not just me, my kids, my friends, my family. So yeah, just take that from
It does.
this podcast if you can.
Good stuff.
All right, man. Thanks, Tom. We'll see you guys next week. Thursday. Yeah, probably Thursday at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. I think I'm still here. So thanks for
Thanks,
watching.
10:30. Yeah, nice.